There are moments in human history so dark, so unsettling that they don't feel real. They feel like horror movies, like folklore, like something exaggerated over centuries, but they're not. These are documented events, real rituals, and real people with real facts. Aztec human sacrifices. Now picture this. A man is held down on a stone altar at the top of a massive pyramid. Thousands of people are watching below, drums are pounding, incense smoke fills the air. A priest lifts a blade made of volcanic glass, and it's sharper than, modern steel, and in one swift motion, he cuts open this man's chest. Now, his heart is still beating when it's held up to the sun. This wasn't a rare execution, this was a ritual. Now, in the heart of the Aztec capital, which is Tenochtitlan, this is in modern-day Mexico City, human sacrifice was embedded into the religious structure of the empire. The Aztecs believed the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, and in return, humans owed a debt. Now, if they didn't pay this debt, the sun would not rise for them. Now, one of the most infamous events occurred in 1487 during the dedication of the Templo Mayor, the Great Temple. Now, historical accounts, including those recorded by Spanish chroniclers and supported by archaeological findings, describe thousands of captives being sacrificed over several days. Victims were typically prisoners of war. They were marched up the steep steps of the pyramid. Their chests were open with obsidian blades, and their hearts were removed and offered to Huitzilopochtli, now the son of war god. Now, their bodies were then thrown down the steps, sometimes dismembered and sometimes not. Archaeologists have uncovered skull racks called Tzizompantli, now where thousands of human skulls were displayed publicly. Now, this wasn't hidden, it wasn't secret, it was public and ceremonial and normalized. And while some historians debate the exact numbers, there is no debate about whether it happened because we know that it did. Adolfo Constanzo, now this is the narco cult that assassinated for protection. Let's jump to 1989. A college student from Texas goes on spring break in Mexico and disappears. Weeks later, authorities discover a ranch filled with ritual objects. These are tools, animal remains, and a shallow grave. The student was Mark Kilroy, and this wasn't just cartel violence, it was ritual assassinations. Now, Adolfo Constanzo was a Cuban-American cult leader operating in Mexico. He practiced Palo Mayombe, an Afro-Caribbean religion that involves spirit communication through sacred cauldrons known as nagnas. Now, he twisted it into something much darker. He convinced illegal substance border distributors that human sacrifice would grant them protection from anything. Now, invisibility from police as well as supernatural powers. His followers stole victims, some random, some chosen for specific traits, and they were tormented and unalived in ritual ceremonies meant to feed the spirits. When police raided the ranch, they basically found human remains buried on the property. Authorities connected Constanzo and his group to at least 20 ritual assassinations. Mark Kilroy's demise brought international attention, though. His brain had been removed, his legs were broken, and the scene was described by investigators as ritualistic and deliberate. Now, Constanzo fled but was later tracked to an apartment in Mexico City, and when police closed in, he ordered one of his followers to fire at him rather than be captured alive. This wasn't medieval history, this was the late 1980s. The Altamira ritual horrors in Brazil. Now, between 1989 and 1993, boys began disappearing in Altamira, Brazil. Not just vanishing, they were found mutilated, and several victims who were quite young were discovered with severe injuries that investigators described as ritualistic in nature. Some had been emasculated, many were taken in similar patterns. The crimes terrified the region, and eventually authorities arrested multiple suspects connected to what prosecutors described as a sect with occult beliefs. Now, the group was linked to something called the Superior Universal lineage, and investigators argued that these were ritual sacrifices tied to black magic practices. This brutality shocked Brazil and remains one of the country's most disturbing criminal cases. The Order of the Solar Temple. This is mass assassination by ritual design. Now, imagine walking into a house and finding bodies arranged in a star formation, all wearing ceremonial robes, and they're all deceased. Now, in 1994, authorities in Switzerland and Canada uncovered something very deeply disturbing. Members of a secretive group called the Order of the Solar Temple had participated in what leaders described as a transit to a higher spiritual plane. Now, in reality, it was orchestrated mass self-inflicted demises, and in some cases, assassination. Now, the cult blended like apocalyptic Christianity, Knights Templar mythology, and New Age beliefs about ascending to another star system. Leaders Luke Jewer and Joseph de Mambro convinced followers that Earth was doomed and that being deceased would allow them to kind of reincarnate on a higher plane near the star Sirius. Over several coordinated events between 1994 and 1997, 74 people passed away across Switzerland, France, as well as Canada. Some were hit, some were poisoned, some's homes were set on fire with the bodies inside, and young people were amongst the deceased. Now, investigations later revealed financial manipulation, psychological control, and staged ritual settings designed to reinforce belief. This wasn't chaos, it was choreographed. The Tatarissio case, this is grave robbery and black magic in Finland. Now, let's rewind to 1930s Finland. Residents near Helsinki began reporting something horrifying. Graves were disturbed, coffins were opened, body parts were missing. Eventually, investigators traced the crimes to a group practicing occult rituals at a swampy spring known as Tatarissio. Now, human hands, feet, and even skulls had been stolen from Malmi Cemetery and submerged in water during black magic ceremonies. The group believed the spring had supernatural properties. They claimed the rituals could heal illnesses, influence court cases, and grant spiritual powers. The media called one of the central figures Noita Kallio, meaning Kallio the witch. Now, this wasn't mass assassinations, but it was ritual desecration of human remains for occult purposes, and it became one of Finland's most infamous criminal cases. So these cases span centuries and continents, different cultures, different beliefs, different motivations, but the common thread in this is this: when absolute belief in supernatural power overrides morality, history shows us exactly how dark things can become. And I mean, the scariest part of all this is that these aren't legends, they actually happen, and that's what makes them completely unforgettable.
So Roche-Thériault was the self-proclaimed Moses to his faithful flock, the anthill. If you think I forgot a word there, it was intentional, so I don't get in trouble. This cult's journey began with a twisted prophecy woven from a belief in the apocalypse. As a youngster, Thériault dropped out of school and started teaching himself the Old Testament. He was convinced that a war between good and evil was about to come. And, well, what's it gonna do? Bring about the end of the world. How'd you know? Thus, he converted to the Seventh-day Adventist Church and lived by their rules. No tobacco, no unhealthy foods, no booze, no substances, nada, no vices. Thériault was a charismatic man. He was good at persuading others to do his bidding. Now, while organizing seminars for the Adventists, he convinced an entire group of people to quit their jobs and form his religious following. Now, he formed this commune in 1977, and it initially promised sin-free utopia and unity. Sounds perfect. He was no longer hush to the world. He was Moses. So, how do we sustain this idyllic life? The sale of baked goods. But behind the bustling bakeries, Thériault's grip tightened with increasingly cruel and bizarre rules. Members were forbidden from speaking without his presence and cut off from their families entirely. Also, Buddy developed a drinking problem, which went against all of his previous beliefs. He also started spying on his followers, and if you didn't seem devoted enough, he's gonna punish you. If you want to leave, well, he's going to be enraged. And the horror didn't stop with the psychological harm. He would often discipline his followers by becoming a self-proclaimed surgeon, using crude tools like kitchen utensils, pliers, and blowtorches to mutilate his followers. And blowtorches to harm his followers. Limbs, teeth, fingers, and toes were all sacrificed. He'd ordered the faithful to break their own legs, fire at each other, and endure inhuman practices like eating what they put out. Insects and rats. Even his own offspring weren't spared. One passed away during a botched circumcision, and the other was left to perish in a blizzard. As the well-being of his seminars decreased, well, Thériault became more and more convinced of his godly delusions. It became apparent to him that the world would end in 1979, and he drove his commune into the Canadian wilderness, convinced that, for some reason, God would skip a chance to destroy Quebec. So 1979 came and went, but the world didn't really end. Now, Moses explained this away by saying our world and God's world run on different time zones. However, this crazy explanation actually didn't stop his followers from romanticizing him and proclaiming him as their absolute leader. Now, in the Canadian wilderness and later the woods of Ontario, his female concubines bore him 26 new followers. Now, Moses, as the ultimate effed up cult leader, would harm his descendants, and welfare authorities would come and take them away. It took a near-death escape by Gabrielle Lavallée to expose the horrors of the anthill. Gabrielle endured unimaginable acts. We're talking hypodermic syringes in her spine, torches to her no region, and amputations. Now, in 1989, the cult's torment finally ended, with Thériault imprisoned for life. And in 2011, another inmate took his life. So, a figure emerged in the 1970s that would captivate the hearts and minds of thousands. Chandra Mohan Jain, known to his followers as Osho, embarked on a journey that would create the Rajneesh movement. Now, this movement was controversial at the time, due to the founders' hostility, first to Hindu morality in India, and later to Christian morality in the US. In the Soviet Union, the movement was banned as being contrary to positive aspects of Indian culture and to the aims of the protest movement in Western countries. Now, the positive aspects were allegedly being subverted by the leader, whom the Soviet government considered a reactionary ideologue of the monopolistic bourgeoisie of India and a promoter of consumerism in a traditional Hindu guise. Osho's quest began in India, where his teachings carried a unique brand of controversy. He criticized Gandhi and really opposed state-sanctioned marriage. For him, love was meant to be free, unburdened by the chains of traditional wedlock. As he gained followers, he only got more power. His followers wore specific robes and adopted new names. So our leader, Osho, originally became Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, the leader of this crazy movement. And his original teachings eventually twisted into greed and killing. Now, the movement thrived, accumulating wealth through a myriad of business enterprises. Osho's obsession with the Rolls Royce began to reflect a new message, that wealth and spirituality could coexist. But then, as things do, they took a turn for the worse. At the peak of these tensions, a circle of leading members of the Oregon Commune was arrested for crimes including an attempted assassination plot to kill U.S. Attorney Charles H. Turner, and the United States' first ever recorded bioharm attack calculated to influence the outcome of a local election in their favor. Granted, these efforts ultimately failed. In this bio-attack, Salmonella bacteria was deployed to infect salad products in local restaurants and shops, which poisoned several hundred people. Osho was deported from the US in 1985 as part of his Alford plea deal, following the convictions of his staff and right-hand man, who were found guilty of the attack. After his deportation, 21 countries denied him entry, and the movement's headquarters eventually returned to India, and the Oregon Commune was destroyed in September of 1985. Now, Osho's legacy lives on, The 12 tribes began under the leadership of Albert Eugene Spriggs. Now, this cult, founded in 1972, has been responsible for manipulative tactics that trapped thousands beneath the facade of communal living. The origins of the 12 tribes movement can reportedly be tracked back to the Light Brigade ministry that operated out of the Lighthouse, which was a small coffee shop in the home of Gene Spriggs and wife Marcia. Now, the Light Brigade began living, communally, and opened a restaurant, which was called the Yellow Deli, while its members were attending several churches, before they all decided to join the First Presbyterian Church. Now, members of this brigade, well affiliated with the First Presbyterian, kinda caused friction within its establishment. What did they do? Well, they brought in anybody who was willing to come with them, including members of, different social classes, different racial groups, a practice which, wasn't really engaged in at the time. On January 12th of 1975, the group arrived at First Presbyterian only to find that the service had been canceled for the Super Bowl, and this led the group to form the Vine Christian Community Church. During this time, the group planted churches, each with its own Yellow Deli, in Dalton and Trenton, Georgia, in Alabama, and in Dayton, Tennessee. Their withdrawal from the religious mainstream turned what had once been a friction-filled relationship into an outcry against them. They began holding their own services, which they called Critical Mass, in Warner Park in Chattanooga, appointing elders and baptizing people outside of any denominational authority. The 12 tribes' beliefs resemble those of Christian fundamentalism, the Hebrew roots movement, Judaism, and the sacred name movement. However, the group believes that all other denominations are fallen, and it therefore refuses to align itself with any denomination or movement. The group has strict courtship rules, and overall just really strict everything rules. So, folks become subject to rules dictating the number of toilet paper sheets you can use, also the shape of your eyeglasses. New members are forced to relinquish their identities, any property, and any ties to the outside world. This group takes manipulation to the extremes, particularly when it comes to younger members. Their relentless use of excessive corporal punishment is nothing short of barbaric. Folks that aren't even old enough to talk yet are subjected to painful spankings with thin wooden rods, all justified by twisted interpretations of biblical principles. Now, if you're gonna leave, you're gonna face some coercion and horrific threats. Those who summon the courage to escape, like John Post, face a wall of of cult members who blocked their exit. The 12 Tribes' really awful history of young member harm allegations is one of their darkest secrets. While the cult publicly condemns intercourse-related harm, its internal handling of such cases tends to be shrouded in secrecy and denial. Allegations are often swept under the rug, with the accused being forgiven. Young members who report harm face disbelief, blame, and punishment, perpetuating a culture of silence and terror. The group supports itself through the operation of several businesses, most of which revolve around agriculture, as well as those cafes and restaurants I mentioned earlier. And how do they do that? Using unpaid and less than legal age labor. Thousands of Tokyo commuters stepped out into a spring morning in March of 1995. Well, a doomsday cult known as Om Shinrikyo embarked on a diabolical journey. Now, if you were just a commuter, it was like an ordinary day. But this cult had laid the groundwork for horror. 5 bags filled with a liquid nerve agent were strategically placed on the city's busy underground systems. And as the packages leaked, stinging fumes really harmed innocent passengers. Within moments, the nerve agent, which sarin gas, kind of took its toll. 13 died, over 5,800 people suffered, some folks were left blind and paralyzed. It was the worst domestic harm attack on Japanese soil. Now, this cult's name, Om Shinrikyo, meaning Supreme Truth, emerged in the 1980s as a spiritual fusion of Hindu, Buddhist, and apocalyptic Christian beliefs. Their leader, Shoko Asahara, proclaimed himself the Christ. Asahara was sentenced to death in 2004 for the attacks, and his final appeal failed in 2011. And in June of 2012, his execution was postponed due to further arrests of members. He was ultimately executed in 2018. The Matamoros cult, led by Adolfo de Jesus Costanzo in Mexico, was a twisted version of the Palo Mayombe tradition. His cult members nicknamed him the Godfather, or El Padrino, and he led this cult with Sarah Aldrete, who was called the Godmother, or La Madrina. Costanzo's mother had groomed him for darkness. She had invoked the supernatural, she sacrificed animals, you name it. Now Costanzo, he manipulated local kingpins, promising them immunity from law enforcement through his dark rituals. He lured unsuspecting victims to perform really awful human sacrifices at his ranch. Eventually victims were exhumed and they found some really bad stuff. Costanzo and his high priestess eluded capture though. Authorities resorted to burning the cult's shack, metaphorically smoking Costanzo out of hiding, and a violent standoff resulted in his death and the arrest of several cult members. How about we start off today with a UFO cult, known as the Superior Universal Alignment. Also known as, wait for it, Lineamiento Universal Superior, it was founded by Valentina de Andrade in 1981. She claimed to have received messages from extraterrestrials warning her of destruction. If, however, she shared their warnings with others, she and her followers would be saved. Similar to the Raelians, SUA believes that Jesus was actually an extraterrestrial messenger. They also believe that males born after 1981 are evil and that their lives should end as payment to the superior beings. In 1989, the Amazonian town of Altamira received a sudden increase in reports of missing boys. Not having clear clues about the disappearances, the authorities couldn't do anything about it. By 1993, the reports rose to 19 missing young folks with no trace or clue as to find them. By that time, the bodies of 5 of the missing were found dead with signs of torment and castration, and it was determined that these killings were connected to the medical guild because the castration seemed to be made by a medical expert. But other than that, nobody knew anything and there was no evidence. So the authorities opened an investigation and began to connect the dots between the killings and those who were missing. The bodies of the boys were identified as homeless ones who had worked in the streets, but most of the missing ones had been reported by their families. This fact unsettled and confused the detectives in charge of the investigation, and they were like, okay, both cases can't be related, because who's so depraved? Well, all their efforts weren't really doing much until one day. One boy came to them and was like, hey, I escaped from my captors, let me tell you everything. The brutality described seemed as if it was ripped from the pages of a horror novel. Some of the atrocities that he suffered that I can say included the castration, obviously, and mutilation, everything else I can't say. He also explained that other victims were impaled to death and their organs were extracted and sold to the black market. Some unofficial versions state that the captors even ate the organs, but there's no official confirmation on that front. Brazilian society was shocked when the victim identified those in charge, since a lot of the folks identified were respected members of society. We're talking 2 doctors, a wealthy businessman, a police officer, and Valentina de Andrade. The leader of the group managed to escape from justice when she presented a very convincing alibi, stating that she wasn't in town when the killings took place. She was exonerated, and now she's happily guiding her increasing flock of followers who simply ignore these crimes. Great. Good leader. Moving on to the Nuobian Nation, which was a black supremacist cult, but instead of enacting a race war, its leader, Dwight York, mostly used it to amass a stable of young body-selling service type SLAVES. So York began founding several black Muslim groups back in New York in 1967 and changed his teachings and names of his groups many times, incorporating concepts from Judaism, Christianity, UFO religions, New Age, and many esoteric beliefs. Essentially whatever pieces of other religions that fit his quote-unquote vision, he used, building quite the mosaic. In the late 1980s, he abandoned the black Muslim theology of his movement in favor of Kemetism and UFO religion. In 1991, he took his community to settle in upstate New York and then near to Eatontown, the county seat of Putnam County in Georgia. His followers built an ancient Egypt-themed compound called Tamaray and changed their name to the United Nuobian Nation of Moors. York published around 450 booklets under numerous pseudonyms, by the way. During the late 1990s, he styled himself a Messiah founder prophet type of his own movement, sometimes claiming divine status or extraterrestrial origin when appearing on his Savior's Day celebrations at Tamaray. Are you still following me? Swell, because we're far from done. By the year 2000, the United Nuobian Nation of Moors had around 500 followers. Granted, they did draw thousands of visitors for Savior's Day ceremonies. Now, the followers kind of declined steeply after York was convicted of numerous counts of bad touching young people, racketeering, and financial reporting violations, and sentenced to 135 years in federal prison in April of 2004. The compound was sold under government forfeiture and demolished, and the Southern Poverty Law Center officially designated this group as a hate group. The group has taken numerous names, though, throughout its history, including, let's see if I can get this right, Ansaru Allah Community, Holy Tabernacle Ministries, Yamasee Native American Moors of the Creek Nation, which was also used in Georgia when York claimed indigenous ancestry via Egyptian migration and intermarriage with the ancient Olmec, and we've already talked about Nuobian Nation of Moors. By the way, York is still in prison for, bad things, but his followers have continued popping up over the years, mostly after they do crimes. Great. As of 2010, some factions of the subculture in the United States appeared to continue to support York, portraying his conviction as a conspiracy by the white power structure. Malik Zulu Shabazz, chairman of the New Black Panther Party and York's lawyer, described him as a great leader of our people and a victim of an open conspiracy by our enemy. So, make of that what you will. Next up, we have Providence, which is officially known as Christian Gospel Mission, CGM, Jesus Morning Star, or JMS. Geez, a lot of these things have a lot of names. It's a Christian new religious movement founded by Jung Myung-suk in 1980 and headquartered in Wolmyongdong, South Korea. I swear I looked up how to pronounce it, folks. It's been widely referenced by international media as a cult, and you're about to find out why. So in the 1970s, this leader was a member of the Unification Church, or UC, which he based his teaching on. When he founded his own group in the 80s, it criticized Christian teachings and beliefs and maintained that their leader was the second coming of Jesus Christ, and was later expelled from the Methodists. The name was changed to the International Christian Association in the mid-1980s, and a rift occurred in the group in 1986 when the vice president of Providence attempted to act on the scandal surrounding the group. But he was shut out of the organizational system, and Jung consolidated all the power around himself. In October of 1999 was when the organization officially became Christian Gospel Mission. So what were the lessons of this cult? Alrighty, everybody, buckle in. One lesson implies that those who do not meet the leader will not go to heaven. Another is that anybody who's going to betray the leader, you're committing a grave crime. During the instruction of the advanced level of the 30 lessons, it is taught that your leader is the Messiah, proven through the numerological interpretation of prophecy dates and times in the book of Daniel. Providence preaches the advent of the complete Testament era and allegorizes the relationship between God and man to that between the groom and bride, or two lovers. It also teaches that the original sin was caused by Eve's intercourse with the fallen angel, who turned into Satan. And Providence teaches that this can be redeemed by having intercourse with your leader. Oh yeah, forgot that little thing. The leader of all this was found to have forced female followers to have coitus with them as a religious behavior meant to save their souls in the Korean court of law. Former members have stated or testified that young and attractive women were presented to their leader as gifts, with whom he coercively engaged in icky acts, which was explained to them as a purification rite. So in April of 2009, our crazy leader was convicted of harming someone in the R-word way by the Supreme Court of Korea and sentenced to only 10 years of imprisonment. He was released in February of 2018, and following his release from prison, the Korea Post reported that the Providence Faith Movement had reached more than 70 countries. Before I get sick, we're moving on to the Nation of Yahweh. In 1978, Hulan Mitchell Jr. left the Nation of Islam because it just wasn't extreme enough for him. He rechristened himself Yahweh ben Yahweh and founded the nation of Yahweh. Try saying that 5 times fast. The group is classified as another black supremacist cult by the Southern Poverty Law Center and as an official cult by the Miami Herald. Swell. The SPLC has criticized the beliefs of the Nation of Yahweh as racist, stating that the group believes that black people are the true race and that whites hold wicked powers. They've apparently calmed down a bit in recent years, but the belief still seems to hold. The SPLC also claims that the group believes that Yahweh ben Yahweh had a mission to vanquish whites and that it held views similar to those of the Christian identity movement, which believes that Aryans are the true bad guys and non-whites are devils. It got to the point where Yahweh proved so popular that he got his own day in Miami, but then he started commanding his followers to kill for him, went to prison for conspiracy to commit killings, and died shortly after his release. He still has a handful of followers in Miami though, although their activity seems to be mostly limited to like Yahweh's the best and posting memes about bad things and homophobic scourges on their Facebook page. The group is reportedly spread throughout the US and no longer concentrated in one location. More recently, the group appeared in the news back in 2012 after Michael the Black Man, real name Maurice Woodside, a member of the group who is now a conservative activist, was invited to speak at a rally for Rick Santorum's presidential campaign, during which he said that Democrats were similar to Yazis. Woodside has since become a vocal supporter of Donald Trump, but continues to defend Yahweh ben Yahweh and the nation's beliefs. Alrighty everybody, we're going to end today with the 12 tribes, formerly known as the Vine Christian Community Church, the Northeast Kingdom Community Church, the Messianic Communities, and the Community Apostolic Order. They're a new religious movement founded by Gene Spriggs that sprang out of the Jesus movement in 1972 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The group calls itself an attempt to recreate the first century church as it is described in the Book of Acts. The group's origins in Chattanooga led to planted churches in surrounded areas, and in the late 70s, the group began a community in Island Pond, Vermont. As the relationship with the Chattanooga community deteriorated, the group eventually left Tennessee, and Vermont became the main area. So the 12 tribes' beliefs resemble those of Christian fundamentalism, the Hebrew Roots movement, Messianic Judaism, and the Sacred Name movement. However, the group believes that all other denominations are fallen, and it therefore refuses to align itself with any denomination or movement. The group has very strict courtship rules, and their views on raising young humans have been a source of controversy. The group supports itself through the operation of several businesses, most of which revolve around agriculture, as well as cafes, restaurants, all using unpaid and often young labor. Oh yeah, young people have been noted to play a central role in the group's beliefs, especially the sons. The 12 tribes believe that it is the parents' responsibility to properly enforce a consequence for sin, so as to allow young people to maintain the state of a clean conscience. So over time, future generations will be better equipped to deal with or overcome the faults of their predecessors. This will apparently enable future generations of the group to hopefully be the 144,000 of Revelation 7. If it wasn't already obvious, folks here are homeschooled, and within the group, young people are apprenticed to elders by the age of to be trained in crafts and specialized labor. The group acknowledges using corporal punishment with a reed-like rod, like a balloon stick, across the rear end, and many former members say punishments can include severe repetitions to the point of fluid release or collapse, and are often repeated daily. The group has obviously ignited controversy and garnered unfavorable attention regarding their practices and accusations of harm. They've been criticized for their beliefs and practices, including for their supremacist views towards Black and Jewish people outside of their membership. The group's teachings have been characterized as racist, misogynistic, and homophobic. And ex-members report excessive corporal punishment, failure to stop harm, and exploitation of followers for labor. Some governments and advocacy groups have labeled the group a cult, and well, I can see why. Cult rituals tend to be kept under wraps, but when footage gets leaked, it's absolutely terrifying to see. In the 1950s, Indiana local Jim Jones founded a church that he claimed promoted socialism and equality, with religious elements of Christianity. Initially, he wasn't much more than a charismatic hustler who faked faith healings by having audience plants pull chicken livers out of congregants' mouths, but as the years progressed, he demanded more and more of his followers. In the early 1970s, he moved his group to California and set them up in a commune-like settlement in Redwood Valley. After he established several locations throughout the state, including its main headquarters in San Francisco, the temple forged ties with many left-wing political figures and claimed to have like 2,000 members. Granted, it might have been more like 3 to 5. Jones eventually came to believe that nuclear war was imminent and moved his followers again to the South American country of Guyana, because he thought this would be outside the potential danger zone. So the group lived there for several years as the People's Temple Agricultural Project. But after former members started speaking out against the church, San Francisco Congressman Leo Ryan decided to travel there to investigate claims of harm. During his visit, a number of temple members were like, "Hey, can we leave with you?" And they accompanied him to the local airstrip at Port Kituma. There, they were intercepted by self-styled temple security guards who opened fire on the group, killing the congressman, 3 journalists, and one of the defectors, as well as injuring 9 others, including Ryan's aide, Jackie Spire. The video we have for you today is a couple of seconds of the incident that were captured on video by NBC cameraman Bob Brown, one of the journalists who sadly passed away in the attack. And this was right before the event we all know. That evening in Jonestown, Jones ordered his congregation to drink a concoction of poison-laced, grape-flavored Flavorate. Yeah, this is where we all got the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid, but it wasn't Kool-Aid. All in all, 918 people died, including 4 folks that died at the temple headquarters that night in the capital of Georgetown. Oh, and side note, surviving temple members of the mass death in the US announced their fears of being targeted by a hit squad composed of survivors, because, yeah, they were terrified. Similarly, in 1979, the Associated Press reported a U.S. congressional aides claim that there were 120 white, brainwashed professional killers out from Jonestown awaiting the trigger words to pick up their hit. Temple insider Michael Prokes, who had been ordered to deliver a suitcase which contained temple funds, which were supposed to be transferred to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, took his own life in March of 1979. 4 months after the incident. In the days leading up to his death, Michael sent notes to several people, together with a 30-page statement he had written about the temple. He had arranged for a press conference in a Modesto, California hotel room, during which he read a statement to the 8 reporters who attended, before excusing himself, entering a restroom, and sadly taking his life. A Canadian nature lover's attempt to capture wildlife on camera kind of backfired in a terrifying way after she accidentally documented what appeared to be nude witches eating a carcass at night, right by her house. She said, "I don't know what the heck was up with that." This was Cornea Stanhope. She told the news outlet because she was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "It really freaked us out. It's not something you see every day." Yeah, no kidding. Now, the Powell River local had reportedly been riding one of her horses one day when she came across a dead deer in her garden. And while most folks might have been like, "Okay, gross, let's just get rid of it," the woman and her father decided to set up a camera to see if the carcass would attract any critters at night. Because why not? So she got there the next day and Bob said, "Hey, there's nude people on the camera." And she's like, "Okay, you're kidding, right?" She called a bull, and then he was like, "Nope, here's the photos." So these bone-chilling photos, taken just after sunset, showed 2 disheveled-looking women with long black hair that obscured their faces, squatting over this dead deer and appearing to dine on its remains. The wicked, hungry pair are completely in the nude, except for what looks like loincloths over their nether regions in the found footage horror film-esque moment. Now, the woman said it looks like they have wigs on because one woman might have blonde hair underneath, but you can't really tell from the photos. And you can see like there was the hoof that was brought right up to her mouth. Our poor witness said she wasn't sure if the so-called witches of Beastwick were kissing it, smelling it, or eating it, but was nonetheless sickened by the ritual, given the amount of bacteria that was possibly on the decaying carcass. Also, she was especially creeped out because the impromptu cuddling session occurred only 2 minutes away from her house. And she was concerned about these women messing with her horses at night, because apparently the horses get really spooked and really unnerved around that specific area. So at first, our witness thought like she was imagining things. Maybe it's something nothing. Social media seemed pretty convinced that the Canadian had witnessed witches, a local cult, or some other malevolent entity performing a demonic ritual. Somebody was like, "This is actually terrifying." Somebody else was like, "That's an S-Walker. They look human, so you come up to them, and once you do, you're gone." Another person was like, "That's basically a walking demon from hell. If you hear screaming, stay inside, get a weapon, leave it alone." And a lot of folks were like, "This is a demonic cult," which means stay away, folks. American professional boxer Ryan Garcia alleged once upon a time that Bohemian Grove, a place rumored to exist in the north of San Francisco, is very much real and is an elite club where he once witnessed some really heinous stuff. He claimed this while he was live on the app formerly known as Twitter with Andrew Tate on March 5 of 2024. Now, in the wake of his allegations, there was a video that went viral online that showed a satanic ritual. So this video was allegedly originally leaked in the year 2000 by prominent conspiracy theorist and radio show host Alex Jones, who allegedly infiltrated the Bohemian Grove around the same time after being denied entry multiple times. While the visual is a little hazy, audio is not the best, some kind of ritual was ongoing. There was fireworks, there was cloaked priests, and well, we've got all those speculations of alleged satanic ceremonies. and that's giving cult vibes. Additionally, Alex Jones's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience has also gone viral, where he claimed that when he trespassed on the Grove a couple decades back, he saw effigies being burnt in front of a large owl shrine, which only further fuels the alleged satanic cult ritual speculation. Well, the Bohemian Club website obviously denies the claims of secret and illegal affairs going on in the area, or technically even its existence. In a 2011 article, the Washington Post revealed that the members of the Manhattan Project met there regularly in the 1940s. That's enough proof for me. A mysterious snippet of footage showing people wearing black robes making an alleged human sacrifice in front of a statue at the European Organization for Nuclear Research campus was posted on YouTube back in 2016 to much debate. While some folks were quick to say, hey, it's fake, this was staged, it has been confirmed that the video was captured at the campus. It is believed that these cloaked figures are researchers performing a satanic sacrifice, just for reasons. And by the way, this area is a highly protected, restricted area with a lot of security gates and security cameras. And another mysterious piece of information is that the man who was filming the incident, even though he was freaking out because he was seeing all this weird stuff, his reflection shows that he's wearing a cloak similar to everybody else. So maybe he was a new initiate who got cold feet? And finally for today, back in 2021, Australia's ABC network was playing a routine news telecast when the anchor was taken by surprise as an unexpected satanic clip played during a switch of visuals. The anchor, Yvonne Young, was presenting a story about Queensland's proposal to make killing of police horses or dogs a criminal offense. Rightfully so. But her narration was visually cut by a frame of 3 officers walking down and then pans back at her. You know, typical stuff. However, a couple of seconds later, her narration once again gets interrupted by a change of visuals, but this time the network played a satanic ritual on screen during the live telecast. In those couple of seconds, a man can be seen standing in a black robe. Another person is seen standing beside the robe-clad person, and then there's somebody else sitting next to a keyboard. Oh, and by the way, there's also an upside-down cross in one corner of the room. The whole clip of the satanic ritual played for only a couple of seconds, but was caught by another media house. The man in the black robe can also be heard saying, "Hail Satan!" So the producers realized the mistake, immediately cut the feed, brought the anchor back on screen, and she stayed silent for a couple of seconds and then quickly segued into another story. So a lot of folks believe that these people from the visual were members of the Noosa Temple of Satan that were protesting against Queensland's education department regarding religious instruction classes in schools. Meanwhile, the temple themselves retweeted the clip with the caption, "Satan works in mysterious ways." Yeah, I'm good. Ever heard of Bohemian Grove? A secretive organization of people that control the world? Well, what do you know? It exists, and many of its members are powerful world leaders and titans of industry. It appears to primarily exist as a place where the rich and powerful go to misbehave. That is, according to the Washington Post. Technically speaking, Bohemian Grove is a restricted 2,700-acre campground at 2601 Bohemian Avenue in Monte Rio, California, in the States, belonging to a private San Francisco-based gentlemen's club known as the Bohemian Club. In mid-July of every year, they host a more than 2-week encampment of some of the most prominent men in the world. Their all-male membership includes artists and musicians, as well as many prominent business leaders, government officials, former US presidents, senior media executives, people of power. You'll notice that I'm not saying any specific names right now, and that's because I don't feel like getting sued or disappearing. Thanks. Members can invite guests for either the Spring Jinx in June or the main July encampments, or they can schedule private day use events when things aren't being used for club-wide purposes, and that's when you're allowed to bring spouses, family, and friends. But if you're a gal or you're underage, gotta get out of there by 9 or 10 o'clock at night, because that's when things get fun, apparently. After 40 years of membership, that's when a guy earns the old guard status, gives you reserved seating at the daily talks and other perks. Okay, I think there's a couple of names I can talk about without getting in trouble. Pray for me. Former US President Herbert Hoover was inducted into the Old Guard on March 4th of 1953, and the club motto is "Weaving spiders come not here," which implies that outside concerns and business deals are left outside. But a lot of business deals actually occur here. Important political and business deals have been developed, notably a Manhattan Project planning meeting that took there in September of 1942, subsequently leading to the atomic explosive device. Those attending this meeting? Ernest Lawrence, J. Robert Oppenheimer, the S1 Executive Committee heads. presidents of Harvard, Yale, Princeton, along with representatives of Standard Oil and General Electric and military officials. At the time, Oppenheimer was not an S1 member, but he hosted the meeting. Grove members take particular pride in this event, and they tell the story pretty often, so I think I was safe to talk about that. Other behavior at the campground has led to numerous claims, with President Richard Nixon's comments from May 13th of 71 calling it the most, insert F-word slur for gay here, goddamn thing you could ever imagine. I swear finding a way to say curse words without getting dinged by YouTube rules is like writing a crossword puzzle. To be a fly on the wall of any of those meetings. Sounds like a cult to me. Okay. Here's a cult I know you've seen posters for, Shen Yun. Technically, it's a show put on by a religious group that is arguably a cult called the Falun Gong. This was founded by a man named Li Hongzhi, who registered the group with the Chinese government in 92. Fun fact, in 1989, after the bad protests, the Chinese Communist Party established a registry of social organizations to try and solve things. Li has been open about his beliefs that evolution is fraudulent, that people of different races will be separated in heaven, and that homosexuality and promiscuity are unnatural. Great, I'm in trouble. He's mentioned that he believes that aliens were attempting to control humans by making us dependent on modern science. Okay. A San Francisco man named Samuel Luo has claimed his mother and stepfather refused essential medical treatment because of the teachings, saying that sickness is based in karma. Also, apparently it's God's plan to eliminate the gay population. Well, I'm still here. So, Shen Yun was kicked out of China and have some heavy anti-communist sentiments, to say the least. Essentially, they're a church that is putting all of their money into a dance show with very heavy anti-communism and anti-China sentiments. They don't hide that they're heavily critical of the government of China. In between depictions of ancient dances or stories told through dance and singing, there are skits depicting, get this, organ harvesting, kidnapping, and suppression of religious liberty by plainclothes secret police. That's a heck of a show. A memo from the Embassy of the People's Republic of China has quite the opinion on the performances. Allow me to quote, "This organization preaches heretical fallacies that are anti-humanity and anti-science, and exercises extreme mental manipulation on followers. It is a cult that seriously harms the society and violates human rights, and is a cancer in the body of the modern and civilized society." According to one attendee over the last couple of years, at one point during the show, an amazing singer came on stage for a solo performance, and then the lyrics of the songs were translated and written on a screen, and they included things like, oh boy, atheism and evolution are deadly ideas, and modern trends destroy what makes us human. That wasn't just something that was said once, it was a recurring theme. This group also concludes the show with a tidal wave crashing into mainland China as a result of their anti-religious ways, in typical end of days fashion. This company has 8 total groups that tour for 6 months each year, performing in over 130 cities in North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Latin America. Ergo, trying to control the world through their views. Okay, here's an out there idea. Rasputin's followers. Hear me out for a minute, would ya? Grigory Rasputin, the legendary Russian mystic and healer, developed a devoted following during his time in St. Petersburg, particularly into the early 20th century. While it might be a stretch to label it a cult in the traditional sense, he did attract a group of followers who revered him as a holy man with supernatural powers. His rise to prominence began when he arrived in St. Petersburg in the early 1900s, claiming to possess healing abilities and a direct connection to God. His charismatic personality and rumored ability to cure Alexei, the hemophiliac son of the Tsar Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra, gained him favor within the Russian imperial family, mostly Alexandria, but still, that was plenty for the time. His influence then extended beyond the royal court, as he attracted followers among the Russian nobility, clergy, and common people. A lot of folks believed that he possessed mystical powers, including the ability to predict the future and influence political decisions. Sounds like a cult taking over something to me. Some folks even credited him with supernatural abilities such as mind control and hypnotism. Once again, we're checking off all the boxes. Rasputin's followers formed a kind of informal cult around him, gathering at his home, seeking his guidance on matters of faith, healing, and personal advice. They saw him as a holy man, capable of performing miracles and offering spiritual enlightenment. Granted, his reputation wasn't without controversy. His unorthodox behavior, including his heavy drinking, promiscuity, and rumored involvement in dark and depraved activities, led to a lot of speculation and condemning from both the Russian Orthodox Church and a lot of Russian society. The man liked to have coitus, and he liked to have it with his followers. Now, despite the criticism and opposition he faced, his hold over the imperial family remained strong for quite some time, because Empress Alexandra relied on him for advice and support. Granted, his influence ultimately became a liability for the monarchy, contributing to growing resentment and discontent amongst the Russian people. So, what happened? Well, in December of 1916, a group of nobles, alarmed by his influence and concerned about the state of the monarchy, were like, let's assassinate him. How'd they do it? Well, they poisoned him, they fired at him, and they drowned him. I don't have enough time to go into detail, but rest assured, if it takes that much to kill somebody, they're not human like you or I. While his followers might not fit the traditional definition of a cult, their unwavering devotion to him and belief in his supernatural powers played a significant role in shaping his legacy as one of the most mysterious and controversial figures in Russian history. Also, his control over the monarchy. Come on. Look, I had to say Scientology today or else everybody would be asking me about it. This is a set of beliefs and practices invented by the American author L. Ron Hubbard, who developed a set of ideas that he called Dianetics. He presented it as a form of therapy. By 1954, he founded the Church of Scientology, and current estimates put the number of Scientologists, or followers, at just under 40,000 worldwide. That's a lot of folks. Scientology beliefs include reincarnation and that traumatic events cause problematic engrams in the mind. But hey, it can be fixed. It's a process called auditing. But you gotta pay a fee each time. Eventually, somebody's gonna be like, okay, you're good. It takes about 7 years. Then you're given the status of clear. After you're deemed clear, then you can take part in further activities called operating thetan levels, which, you guessed it, more money. The texts are kept secret from most followers and revealed only after you've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to the organization. If you don't have ridiculous amounts of money to burn, don't worry. Go on WikiLeaks. They're there. From soon after their formation, these groups have generated considerable opposition and controversy. And that's because, well, there's been some illegalness. So, by 1967, Hubbard was like, ooh, I'm gonna form a new elite group, the Sea Organization, or Sea Org. And I'm only gonna pick the most committed members of the church to join. By 1981, we get David Miscavige, who had been one of Hubbard's closest aides. He rose to prominence, so when Hubbard passed away, Miscavige was like, I'm in charge now. And he's still in charge to this day. Look, that's 1986 to 2024. You do the math, it's been a minute. If you want to talk about the illegal stuff, well, in the 1970s, all of these followers engaged in a program of criminal infiltration of the US government, resulting in several executives of the organization being convicted and imprisoned for multiple offenses by a US federal court. Well, going back to the former leader, Hubbard, he was convicted in absentia of fraud by a French court in 1978 and sentenced to 4 years in prison. In 1992, a court in Canada convicted the Scientology organization in Toronto of spying on law enforcement and government agencies, and also criminal breach of trust. The Church of Scientology was convicted of fraud by a French court in 2009, a judgment which was upheld by the Supreme Court of Cessation in 2013. The Church of Scientology has been described by government inquiries, international parliamentary bodies, scholars, law lords, and numerous superior court judgments as both a dangerous cult and a manipulative profit-making business. I could talk about them for hours. We could be here all day. And just how awful they are. So let me know in the comments if you'd want that. How about we end today with a doozy that I think still controls a lot of people, but they don't know it, NXIVM. Founder Keith Rainier originally promoted this as a self-help organization. There was workshops, there was classes on empowerment. Heck yes, it had 18,000 followers at its peak. I think that was around 2017 when members came forward to expose the really bad practices of a secret society within the group. Women were recruited under the false pretense that they were joining a sisterhood, but it ended up being a coitus cult. There was a pyramid scheme. So Keith, who members would call Vanguard, he was at the top, followed by masters who recruited other women to join the secretive group. And at the bottom were the newest recruits, who were referred to as, well, the lowest of the low. A former member explained that in order to be admitted to the secret club, you gotta hand over some dirt, some nudie photos and other compromising documents that people could use to blackmail you with if you'd ever tell anybody about it. She was also told that another part of the initiation was getting a small tattoo. But when the day arrived, well, she got branded instead. No little tattoo, a brand. Where was it? Right above the pelvic area. Each woman was instructed to say, and I quote, "Master, please brand me, it would be an honor." Ew. Icky. So fast forward to 2020, Keith was tried in court where more than a dozen women came forward with statements regarding his psychological and other icky misdoings. He was convicted of many crimes, racketeering, bad videos. I could go on. He was sentenced to life in prison, but in a court filing, his lawyers wrote, yeah, he's not sorry for his choices. Look, if you're handing over that much blackmail, I'm pretty sure this cult still exists to this day, but people just don't want to come forward. I don't blame them, but
The fatal cave of the gods. This is Pluto's gate at Hierapolis in Turkey. Now, if you want to see what the ancient world feared most, stand in front of a cave so lethal that animals dropped to their demise the moment they approached it. Not from curses, not from myths, but from a real, invisible force that seemed to come straight from the underworld. This isn't a legend. This is Pluto's gate. The Plutonian of Hierapolis, an ancient ritual site that Greeks and Romans genuinely believed was a portal to heaven. hell. In antiquity, priests would guide bulls, goats, and birds towards the cave's narrow entrance. Now, crowds watched from specially built kind of stone seating, which sounds uncomfortable. The second the animal's hooves or wings crossed the threshold, it would collapse, twitch, and pass away. People screamed, pilgrims fainted, and the priests, well, they walked out unharmed, as if protected by the gods themselves. Now, the truth, revealed only in modern times, made the sight even creepier. The cave sits directly on top of a fissure in the planet's crust that emits highly concentrated carbon dioxide. Now, the toxic gas flows like a river along the ground, invisible yet very lethal. The priests weren't immune. They just understood the airflow. They stayed higher up above the lethal air, appearing supernatural. Ancient writers describe the site as a place where the living could speak to the deceased. Offerings were thrown into the darkness. Rituals honoring the underworld took place at sunrise when the vapors were strongest. Entire religious ceremonies were built around the cave's lethal breath, viewed not as danger, but as the literal exhale of hell itself. Today, the entrance still emits vapors. Small animals occasionally collapse near it. Archaeologists exploring it with modern equipment recorded lethal concentrations. The same ancient force that terrified entire civilizations still linger in that darkness. Masaya volcano in Nicaragua, the fire mouth of the devil. Now imagine a volcanic crater so terrifying that Spanish, conquistadors were convinced the devil lived inside it. A place where ancient tribes performed rituals, sacrifices, and communications with gods who live beneath the earth. A place christened with a name that translates to the mouth of hell. This is Masaya, one of the most feared ritual sites in Central American history. Now, when, they first approached Masaya in the 1500s, they saw fire kind of exploding out of the earth, illuminating the night sky with a deep red glow. The local tribes warned them that this was the doorway to the world below, a sacred and dangerous place inhabited by beings that are not human, not mortal, and definitely not friendly. The Spanish watched volcanic bombs kind of flying from the crater, lightning spiraling inside the smoke, and rivers of molten rock moving like living creatures. They recorded that the indigenous people offered, sacrifices to stop the spirits below from being or bringing destruction. But what the Spanish didn't know was that the Masaya, had been a ritual center long before they arrived. For centuries, the Cortega and other local groups left offerings at the crater's edge. Some reports describe priests entering caves connected to the volcano, believing that they were descending into a spiritual realm. Archaeologists have discovered, obsidian blades, pottery fragments, and burned remains, signs of ritual practices involving fire, smoke, and communication with the underworld. Now, the conquistadors became terrified. They performed exorcisms at the volcanic rim. They even tried to lower a man into the crater with a rope to retrieve what they believed was literal treasure from hell. The rope snapped. The man was consumed by smoke and heat instantly. Now, centuries later, Masaya is still active. It's still glowing. It's still smoking. And locals still call it the same thing their ancestors did. The door to the place no living person should just ever try to enter. So don't. Fengdu Ghost City in China. This is the ancient staircase to the afterlife. There are places built to honor the deceased, and then there are places built to guide souls into the afterlife. Now, this Fengdu Ghost City belongs to the second category. An entire mountain carved into temples, judgment halls, demon statues, torture grounds, and stairways designed to show exactly what awaits you after demise. It's a physical map of hell built into stone. Travelers arriving centuries ago described the mountain as unervingly silent. The temples towered above them, painted demons sculled from the rooftops, bridges curved over dark ravines, statues depicted hungry ghosts and tormented spirits, and monstrous judges who decided whether a soul would reincarnate or be dragged into internal torment. Now, this site dates back nearly 2,000 years. Now, according to legend, two scholars traveled to the mountain to practice Taoism, if I'm saying that right. Over the years, they became so spiritually powerful that people believed they had ascended beyond mortality, becoming rulers of hell. Their names combined formed the phrase King of Hell, and the mountain was transformed into a ritual of, pilgrimage site representing the entire underworld. Worshippers walked pathways meant to replicate the soul's journey after demise. The bridge of helplessness was designed to determine moral purity. Now, the ghost torment pass displayed scenes of punishment. The last glance at home tower represented the final moment a spirit looks back at Earth before passing fully into the afterlife. Earthquakes, wars, and floods have struck struck the mountain by Fengu ghost city remains standing eerily above the Yangtze River like a gateway the living were never meant to cross. The Mayan underworld entrance, this is Acton, Tunchil, Munkal, Belize, if I said that right. Tour guides call it just a cave. Locals call it something far more chilling. The gateway to Ixalba, which is the Mayan underworld. Now, this isn't just a cave system, it's a labyrinth that once hosted rituals, sacrifices, and ceremonies dedicated to gods who rule demise, disease, and darkness. We're not talking about the movie from the 80s. We're really talking about from deeper than that. Now, the deeper you go, the stranger and more unsettling it does become. To enter the cave, you actually have to wade through water. It's very cold, very dark, and eerily still. The walls echo with every drop of moisture. Ancient Maya believed that caves were, portals, liminal spaces where the boundary between the living and the deceased dissolved. And Acton, is one of the most important ritual caves ever discovered. Inside, archaeologists found poetry offerings arranged in patterns, fire pits used for ceremonies, and skeletal remains, including the famous Crystal Maiden. Her bones, preserved for centuries, have become coated in shimmering, salicite and giving her an almost supernatural glow. Now, she was likely a sacrificial victim, unfortunately, positioned deep within the cave as an offering to appease the gods. Other remains show signs of trauma, consistent with ritual execution. Now, the Maya believed these sacrifices kept balance between worlds, ensuring rain, crops, fertility, and protection. As you walk deeper, the air becomes heavier. The silence becomes oppressive. Some explorers say they feel watched, not by animals, but by something older. Sections of the cave are still off limits today because of their spiritual importance, and even modern, Maya communities continue to revere the cave as a sacred place connected to the underworld. Lake Avernus in Italy, this is the Roman gateway to the underworld. There's a lake in Italy that the Romans feared so deeply, they believed birds couldn't even fly over it without falling straight from the sky. A lake so dark, its vapors so heavy, its water so still, that entire civilizations treated it as the front door to hell. This is Lake Avernus, the ancient legendary entrance to the underworld described by poets, historians, and priests for over 2,000 years. Now, Lake Avernus sits inside an ancient volcanic crater. Thick forests once surrounded it, blocking sunlight and creating a very eerie perpetual twilight. Ancient writers described the air as so toxic, they said the atmosphere alone was enough to unalive anything small that tried to cross it. Now, the Romans built temples, shrines, and ritual sites around the lake, not to celebrate life, but to communicate with the deceased. The site is, referenced in epic tales where heroes descend through caverns near the lake to enter the underworld. The priestesses of the underworld were believed to live nearby, guiding rituals that allowed the living to speak with the spirits. Now, archaeologists later discovered tunnels, chambers, and carved passageways around the lake, hinting that it may have been used for, initiation rites. One underground system, a massive winding passage, and it seems intentionally built to simulate a journey into the land of the deceased, whether used by priests, royalty, or maybe secret societies. No one actually knows for sure. Volcanic gases once rose from the lake's surface, and mist clung to the water. On the darkest days, the entire crater looks like just one big cauldron. No wonder the ancients believed the earth itself opened here. Today the lake looks peaceful, but the stories remain. Some locals still won't go near it after sunset, and I don't blame them.
The cult of Dionysus. The cult of Dionysus has sparked dark speculations and controversies over many years. It's a highly secretive organization, and knowing what exactly occurs within the privacy of members is unknown. Just to list a few of the many theories, here are some of the dark speculations and controversies surrounding the cult of Dionysus. Quote, excess and madness. The cult's celebration of intoxication and ecstasy led to accusations of excess and madness. Critics argued that the excessive consumption of wine and the frenzied behavior of cult participants could lead to a breakdown of societal order and morality, moral and social disruption. Many in the ancient world viewed the Bacchanalian and Dionysian festivals as a threat to established social norms. The rejection of traditional roles and the temporary suspension of societal rules during these festivals raised concerns about moral and social disruption. Bodily liberation. Some Dionysian rituals were associated with liberation and promiscuity. Some believed that these practices would lead to licentious behavior and the erosion of traditional family structures. Foreign influence. The cult of Dionysus was often associated with foreign influence and was viewed viewed with suspicion by those who feared the introduction of foreign beliefs and practices into their culture. Accusations of political subversion. In some instances, the cult was seen as a potential threat to political stability. Rulers and authorities worried that the Dionysian festivals could be used as a cover for political subversion or rebellion. Mystery and secrecy. The secret and exclusive nature of some Dionysian rites gave rise to speculations and conspiracy theories. The mystery of religion aspect of the cult fueled rumors and concerns about what might be happening behind closed doors. Tragedies and harm. The association of Dionysus with tragedy in Greek drama led to the belief that participation in Dionysian rituals could result in real-life tragedies and harm. End quote. Though the speculations likely do hold some truth, being able to definitively answer whether any or all of these theories are true is impossible. Records of the cult's activity were often exaggerated through misunderstandings or misinterpretations of the cult's practices. But it is thought that many of the rituals have been spotted throughout history, hinting that the cult may not be as inactive as many think. Number 4. The Blackburn Cult. May Otis Blackburn's cult, which is referred to with many names, including the Order of the Doves and, of course, the Blackburn cult, was a controversial religious movement that emerged in Los Angeles, California. The cult's beliefs and practices were described as a combination of mysticism, apocalyptic prophecies, and unorthodox spiritual teachings. The cult was unofficially founded in the early 1920s, centering its teachings on the notion that May Otis Blackburn, their leader and founder, was a chosen prophet, selected by divine forces to guide followers through the impending end of the world. May claimed to receive direct revelations and instructions from angels and other spiritual entities. She warned her followers to prepare for the looming apocalypse, leading them into believing that only they would be saved from the cataclysmic events she spoke of. The beliefs also included select sections of witchcraft and mysticism, which actually led to legal troubles for May Otis Blackburn and her followers. In 1929, she, along with her son Raymond, faced a high-profile trial in which they were accused of practicing witchcraft and defrauding their followers. The trial received significant media attention and portrayed the cult as a group of radicals who manipulated their members for personal gain. May Otis Blackburn was a writer also. She produced numerous books and pamphlets to spread her religious doctrines and apocalyptic visions. These writings played a crucial role in spreading her teachings and attracting new converts to the Order of the Doves. Despite the cult's strange practices and legal challenges, it managed to gather a following during its existence. However, the relentless scrutiny from the law surrounding a certain body found under a house frequented by the cult and disturbed opinions from the public ultimately led to its disbandment. May Otis Blackburn's life took a quieter turn after the cult's dissolution, and she passed away in 1951. But to this day, it's not known certainly whether there are still practicing members, whether it be people who grew up in the cult or those whose parents raised them under the set of beliefs. Number 3. Order of Nine Angels. The Order of Nine Angels, or the ONA, is one of the most mysterious and highly controversial groups in the world of modern Satanism and the occult. The ONA was founded in the UK in the 1960s, promoting extreme and often dangerous forms of Satanism. Its core beliefs and practices are complex and unconventional, which has led to bouts of intense debate and controversy from Satanists and non-practicing communities alike. The heart of their philosophy is the concept of the sinister tradition, which is a radical, committed path that encourages members to challenge societal norms and embrace chaos and darkness. They view Satan as a symbol of rebellion against the established order, advocating for personal transformation through dark and sometimes harmful experiences. One of the most notorious aspects of the ONA is its advocacy for culling, a term they use to describe acts of harm and even Homo sapien sacrifice. Some of the ONS's writings are extremely dark and grossly disturbing, further demonstrating their deeply antisocial and extremist perspective. While they remain a highly secretive, tight-knit, and controversial group, their writings and philosophy have managed to spread widely and even found their way into other areas of the occult, impacting various forms of alternative spirituality. The Order of the Nine Angels remains a fringe and extremist organization to this day. Their beliefs and practices are widely criticized and condemned for their proud and loud promotion of harm and extremism. As with any belief system, it's important to approach their beliefs with caution and to be aware of the potential harm and danger it can pose, especially if it's taken to the extreme. Number 2. Sachiko Ito. The bizarre and disturbing saga of Sachiko Ito, the woman who would come to be known as the Drumstick Killer, began in 1990. It all started when her husband suffered a back injury, which not only incapacitated him, but also led him down a very dark path of drinking and gambling, which ended up pushing the couple into very deep debt, which eventually forced them to sell their home and move to a different town. In their new town, they became involved with a religious group, which was deeply involved in spiritual faith healing. But their involvement didn't last long because they used the organization's name without permission and were expelled. This led to Ito's husband experiencing a mental breakdown and disappearing without a trace in 1992. With her husband gone, the descent into her heinous actions began. She moved approximately 100 miles north of Tokyo and started performing spiritual healings. Ito proclaimed that she was a healer and a psychic, gradually making increasingly grandiose claims. She eventually declared herself a god who possessed the power to drive demons out of people. These statements quickly attracted a large following of devotees who flocked to her for services. Ito's cult grew quickly, with over a dozen believers and their family members living in her home and participating in rituals. Her rituals, involving drumstick beatings meant to end the dirty body and purify the soul, quickly escalated in aggression. She accused some of her followers of being possessed by a bad fox and had them beaten until they were hardly alive. In June of 1995, less than 3 years after Ito moved, one of Ito's followers was hospitalized with severe injuries from a ritual. This follower also reported that her husband had abruptly disappeared after visiting Ito's house. This raised suspicions and led the police to search the premises, where they uncovered a truly horrific scene. 6 decomposing bodies, 2 men and 4 women, were discovered, some mummified and wrapped in futons. All of their lives were ended due to the harm inflicted during Ito's rituals. Ito, her daughter, and a man named Yutaka Nemoto and another follower were arrested and charged with the deaths. Ito's survivor, who had reported the cult, was also arrested. Ito initially claimed that the deaths were unintentional and were simply a part of a religious exorcism. The trial resulted in Ito receiving a life-ending sentence, while her accomplices received prison sentences ranging from 18 years to life. On September 27, 2012, at the age of 65, Ito was hanged after several unsuccessful appeals, hopefully ending the belief system that she created, but no one's quite sure. Number 1. Temple of the Black Light. The Temple of the Black Light, which can also be referred to as the Misanthropic Luciferian Order, MLO, which is what I will be calling it because it's the shortest name. The MLO is a group associated with left-hand path spirituality and philosophy. MLO was founded in Sweden in the early 1990s, and it has gained popularity in cult theorists for its unique approach to Satanism and the left-hand path. The central notion of the MLO is the self-created worship that they call Chaos Gnostic Satanism. What sets them apart from many other satanic groups, MLO's beliefs are rooted in a drastic form of nihilism and a deep desire to embrace chaos, darkness, and spiritual rebellion. Honestly, real. They believe in an intangible force called chaos, which they see as a destructive, creative, and transformative entity that has great power and aims to oppose the order and constraints of the universe. MLO's members revere Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment, liberation, and defiance against traditional religious and societal norms. However, their interpretation of Lucifer is much different from popular depictions of him. To them, Lucifer represents a dark and chaotic force that opposes established religion and the moral codes of society. The MLO is known for its extreme and often controversial writings, which explore the esoteric beliefs of the religion in depth. Their texts often feature highly complex and cryptic symbolism, which is intended to be understood by those who are deeply committed to the group's philosophy and not for those outside. I mean, that's a good way to reject skeptics. Like, if skeptics were like, dude, this text doesn't make any sense, the members could just say, yeah, well, duh, you wouldn't get it. You can't sit with us. The Temple of the Black Light is considered a highly controversial group within the broader satanic community as well. They are criticized for their extremist and nihilistic views, as their beliefs are not an accurate representation of traditional satanic traditions and beliefs, which normally encompass a wide spectrum of beliefs and practices. The Temple of the Black Light actually remains a small and secretive group that's still active to this day.
Is the ritual to the other side. This is a ritual performed to let you experience a little bit of the demon world. Now, unlike some of the the other demonic rituals on this list, it's relatively tame, and your life, it's not going to be at stake. However, the mental strain that it can have on you can be extremely costing. You're going to need a sizable mirror, enough that you can put both of your hands flat on it while still seeing your upper body, a completely pitch black room with absolutely no light whatsoever, a singular candle, but one that isn't too large and won't illuminate the whole room, just something where you can see yourself. Also, an alarm and somewhere to sleep. Now, after you have your items, go take a nap. You want to set your alarm for roughly 2 hours of sleep so that when you wake up, you are decently dazed and not fully aware. Right when you wake up, go to your room with your mirror and make it pitch black. Then light your candle and have it somewhere out of sight, just enough light that you can make out your face in the mirror. You want to place both hands on the mirror roughly shoulder width apart and start to stare at yourself. Focus on yourself. Your focus needs to be impeccable if you want this to work. Now start to alter your breathing. A slow breathe in and a longer exhale. You want your mind and your body to go completely blank and feel as if they're exiting your body. If you're doing all of this properly, then you should start to feel subtle vibrations in your hands that ring throughout your arms. This should be followed by your face starting to distort as if you were hallucinating. Now is when the real images start though. People have reported seeing flashes of loved ones who have died where they're supposed to be standing in the mirror, or have their own bodies start to morph into a demon. Sounds and voices will begin to ring throughout the supposedly silent room, and in extreme cases, your entire room will morph itself into a fiery hell. You have now calmed your mind to a state where it is capable of comprehending the demon realm, and you are in it. Now, it's relatively easy to snap out of this place and no harm will come to you, but that's not the case for some people. This experience can be extremely jarring and haunt people for the rest of their lives. In very rare cases, people who have tried this have descended into a deep depression or even madness. I can only imagine that knowing what is on the other side and what could be potentially waiting for us is a very scary place to be. Sometimes, guys, ignorance truly is bliss. Number 4 on this list is a game called the Devil's Game. In this ritual, you will basically be summoning the devil, and summoning the devil can be extremely dangerous. To perform the Devil's Game, you will need a few items. A can of salt, 7 candles, red or white is preferred, a lighter or match to light those candles, some red string, it could be rope or yarn if that's what you have, but the color has to be red. You'll also need a full-length mirror. Mirrors are pretty common in these rituals, by the way. And lastly, this must be done in a church, and it must be done at midnight when you do it. Also, you are not allowed to have anything electronic or any religious paraphernalia that may help you, like holy water. Now take your salt and surround the mirror on the ground. Then wrap your mirror with the red string. Take your candles and light them and space them out around the mirror as well. All of these things are actually to help protect you from the devil. The summoning you still have to do. To summon the devil, you actually have to do something sacrilegious in the church. This could be anything, but I think the easiest would be some sort of vandalism. Do that and then close all the doors to the room and kill the lights so that you're only lit by the candles. Close your eyes now and count to 10 with the distinct image of the devil in your mind. After you reach 10, open them. You should be staring directly at the devil in the mirror in place of yourself. Now, the devil didn't come all of this way just to look at you. He wants to play, and the game is a simple question and answer game. If you get something right, he'll answer your questions truthfully, but it's not that easy. This is the devil, and the questions that he asks will be specifically made to stump you. In fact, the questions that he asks will be ones that you're never 100% sure that you know the answer to, and therefore you can never be 100% sure if he is telling the truth to you or a lie when he answers your questions. So when you ask him, "How am I gonna die?" and he answers with, "You're gonna get hit by a bus," is that the truth? Or is that a lie? You're never gonna know, and for the rest of your life, you will most likely be petrified of buses. Occasionally, he will also dare you to do something. Now, this is interesting because if you complete the dare, you will know for certain that the next thing you ask him will be true. If you do the dare, you could ask him next week's winning lottery numbers and he'd have to tell you the truth. But the dare he gives you, it's not gonna be pleasant. Self-harm, hurting those that you love, completely going against any morals that you thought you had. Those are all completely on the table. You could stand to gain a lot from this game. However, you could also stand to lose a lot or gain absolutely nothing at all, just a bunch of paranoia. Anytime you summon the devil, it's a bad idea, and the devil's game is no different. Number 3 on this list is Veronica's game. Now, Veronica's game is a demonic ritual that will summon Veronica, a demon girl, who died playing a very similar game many years ago. To get this demon's attention, you will need a few items. A mirror, again, a clock, a quiet room, a candle. This ritual will also require you to perform it at midnight, just like the other ones. Have the mirror set up in your quiet room so that it's at eye level with you. At exactly midnight, light the candle and stare into the mirror. Veronica. Veronica. You have to repeat her name 9 times, staring at yourself in the mirror. After you have done so, extinguish the candle and leave the room. Now, why is this called a game? I don't really understand, because there's really nothing fun about it at all. She's with you now. The demon Veronica is now there with you, and whenever you are by yourself, you will feel her presence. You have just awoken a demon who doesn't want to be awake right now, and she's going to haunt you. You'll feel the temperature start to drop whenever you're by yourself. You may hear sounds that you can't identify or sense movement that you don't understand. It's said that if you ever make fun of Veronica in any way, then that's going to be the last thing that you do. This demon supposedly carries around a pair of scissors at all times and will use them on you if she ever feels that you're taunting her. This demonic ritual should absolutely never be performed because you stand absolutely nothing to gain and potentially your life to lose. Number 2 on this list is a ritual performed by a bunch of high school students in 1986. Now, this ritual has less to do about the otherworldly things that you may summon and more to do with the fact that this is just wrong and you shouldn't ever do this. 12 high school students were linked to a demonic ritual with the goal of praising Satan and cleansing the world of what Satan or these students may qualify as unworthy. These students had found an abandoned house that they painted black and used that as their main base of operations. They painted it black as apparently a way of keeping the badness in and the goodness out. It was here that they had been performing several demonic rituals for months. One of their rituals, though, culminated on the witch's Sabbath. They had been preparing for this day for quite a while, drawing blood circles in their abandoned home, and speaking various incantations to please their devilish lord. The final act, though, involved a sacrifice. On the witch's Sabbath, one of the 12 high school students, a 15-year-old, snuck into an older student's bedroom with a shotgun and used him for the sacrifice. Yeah, this entry gets kinda real. This was their demonic sacrifice meant to appease the devil. Now, I can't say for certain whether the actual ritual worked because there's currently no knowledge on that. But what I do know is that the 15-year-old and those involved went to jail for a very long period of time. I also know that a 17-year-old boy who had absolutely nothing to do with anything died. Like I said, this one on the list is less about what you may summon and the consequences with that, but more about the fact that you should just never do this. And the fact that people thought this was a good idea, it's just complete insanity. Number 1 on this list is a ritual performed by 2 high school students, Mike and Sid. Now, although Mike and Sid kind of sounds like a great name for a sitcom or like a really good cop show, these guys get a little bit darker than that. Longtime high school friends and big fans of the horror movie genre in general, one evening they stumble upon a ritual on a deep part of the internet. The goal is to summon a demon. Even though the boys have a deep respect for demons and don't want to mess around, it's promised online that this demon will be thankful for being summoned and won't cause you any harm. What you need for this ritual is a frog and a specific incantation in a language called Enochian. I couldn't find the specific incantation that the boys used, and frankly, I mean, it's probably a good thing that this information is difficult to locate. Grab your frog by its hind legs. This is gonna be difficult because it has to still be alive when you are doing this. Stick it directly into sunlight and begin to speak your Enochian incantation. Now, I kinda hate this next part because I love animals, but as you're speaking your hex, kill the frog. Let the blood of the frog drop to the ground. If your spell is working, then you will notice pretty rapidly that the frog itself will start to wither up and shrink. Now, it's said that this should summon a demon in front of you. However, when the boys did this, that's not what happened. Sid was watching as Mike uttered the final words to their ritual. After it was done, Mike stood there for a moment, silently, with the dead, withered up frog in his hands, until he twisted his head 180 degrees backwards and stared directly at Sid with his eyes rolled completely back in his head. Then, without warning, he lunged after Sid in a fully unnatural, inhuman way, spitting and cursing as he did. Sid dodged him and ran out of the house as fast as he could, not stopping for 10 whole minutes. After an hour of waiting and regaining his courage, he carefully made his way back to go check on his friend. Mike was lying completely naked with scratches all over his body, unconscious in the middle of the basement. When he woke up, he had absolutely no memory of the entire incident at all and doesn't know how he got there.
First off, Heaven's Gate. This infamous UFO cult believed that the Earth was about to be wiped clean, and the only way to survive was to leave it. In late March 1997, as Hale-Bopp reached its closest distance to Earth in a haunting act of collective departure from the material world, Applewhite and his 38 devout followers consumed a deadly cocktail of phenobarbital and vodka. Their intention was to shed their earthly bodies, board an alien spacecraft, and journey through Heaven's Gate to achieve a perceived superior form of existence. The group was established in 1974 by Bonnie Nettles and Marshall Applewhite, who were referred to as T and Doe within the movement. The pair first encountered each other in 1972 and embarked on a spiritual journey claiming to be the two witnesses mentioned in Revelation. By the mid-1970s, they had amassed several hundred followers. By 1976, the movement, comprising a core group of a few dozen members, adopted a monastic lifestyle and ceased recruitment. This is dark, but now I'm curious. Have you stumbled upon a story about a UFO cult that sent chills down your spine and left your palms sweating? Share your eeriest encounter in the comments. Heaven's Gate's theology is perceived as a fusion of Christian millenarianism, a New Age philosophy, and ufology, leading to its recognition as a UFO religion. The group held a firm belief that members could morph into immortal extraterrestrial beings by renouncing their human nature, and that they would ascend to a higher existence termed as the next level, or the evolutionary level above human. After Nettles succumbed to cancer in 1985, the group reinterpreted their belief in ascension. Initially, they thought they would ascend to heaven alive via a UFO, but later they began to view the body as merely a vessel for the soul and believed their consciousness would transition to next level bodies upon passing. On March 26, 1997, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department found the bodies of the 39 active members of the group, including Applewhite, in a house in the San Diego suburb of Rancho Santa Fe. Just prior to the mass departure, the group's website was updated with a message indicating that the comet marked the end of Heaven's Gate's journey on Earth and they were ready to leave with T's crew. However, the name Heaven's Gate was only used in the final years of the group's existence. Previously, they were known as Human Individual Metamorphosis and Total Overcomers Anonymous. Despite the horrific tragedy that occurred with the Heaven's Gate cult, it continues to intrigue and fascinate many people even years later. The beliefs and actions of this group offer a glimpse into the complexities of human behavior and our search for meaning and purpose in life. One of the most striking aspects of the Heaven's Gate cult is their unwavering faith in their leader, Marshall Applewhite. He was able to convince his followers that their wiping out from existence was the only way to reach a higher level of existence and achieve salvation. This blind faith serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of giving total control over one's life to another person. The constant bombardment of doomsday predictions and conspiracy theories in mainstream media has made people more susceptible to believing in extreme ideas. The fear of the unknown and the desire for answers often lead individuals to seek solace in these groups, providing them with a sense of belonging and purpose. However, the danger lies in the potential for manipulation and exploitation by leaders of those groups. The blind loyalty and willingness to believe can be used to control and manipulate followers for personal gain. This is why it's crucial to approach such groups with caution and critical thinking. Next on our list, the Aetherius Society. Founded in 1954 by George King, this group believes in advanced extraterrestrial intelligences operating on spiritual principles who govern the Earth. They consider themselves as cooperators with these cosmic beings to bring about positive change. The unique spiritual group, founded by a man who claimed to communicate with the extraterrestrial beings whom he called the Cosmic Masters. Followers of this faith believe that by aligning with these cosmic masters, they can help humanity overcome earthly challenges Ages and ascend to a New Age. Their belief system is a complex mix of Theosophy, New Age notions, millenarian beliefs, and elements of UFO mythology. This society highly values selflessness, community service, respect for nature, spiritual healing, and fitness. Their gatherings resemble traditional church services. Although the Aetherius society is generally non-controversial, some have questioned its esoteric and millenarian aspects. Despite its followers spanning the globe, the society remains quite small, with memberships mainly concentrated in the UK, Southern California, and the US and New Zealand. Their theology, deeply influenced by Theosophy, fuses narratives of UFOs, yoga, and elements from different world religions, especially Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity. They reject religious exclusivity, maintaining that no one religion, nation, or race holds a monopoly on divine favor. The ultimate goal of this religion is to prevent global destruction by promoting harmony between humans and extraterrestrial masters, and by harnessing spiritual energy to raise the planet's spiritual level. They believe that prayer, often associated by spiritual energy batteries, often assisted by spiritual energy batteries designed to hold healing psychic energy, can prevent or mitigate various disasters. The society's founder claimed to have telepathic conversations with Aetherius, placing him in the esteemed company of other Venus-sourced cosmic masters like Buddha and Jesus. Next up on our list is Christ Brotherhood. This group's intense devotion to otherworldly powers and alleged plans to summon extraterrestrial beings have made them a group of interest to the government. The unique UFO religion born out of Orange, California, it all started back in 1956 when a man named Wallace C. Halsey received otherworldly messages in his dreams. These prophetic warnings from alien beings detailed the looming end of the world, but with a silver lining. A chosen few of humanity would be saved. Halsey established Christ Brotherhood, Inc. as a non-profit religious educational organization, its mission enlightening mankind. Remarkably, it attracted members from a staggering 52 different religious denominations. In a compelling turn of events, Halsey led his followers to Cache Valley, Utah. In 1961, here they started building a unique compound replete with underground weapon shelters in the mountains near Smithfield City. Why this location, you ask? Well, Joseph Smith, the founding prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, had identified the Rocky Mountains as a sanctuary. But in 1963, the coherence of the Brotherhood was tested when Halsey mysteriously disappeared during a flight from Utah to Nevada. Despite exhaustive searches and even attempts to call upon extraterrestrial assistance, it took 13 years for a lost deer hunter to inadvertently discover the plane wreckage and the remains of Halsey and pilot Harry Cleveland Ross Jr. In memory of Halsey, his teachings to the Brotherhood were compiled into a volume published in 1965, Cosmic End Time Secrets. This book encapsulates the prophetic messages from alien life forms to Halsey, but this was not the end of the Christ Brotherhood. In fact, it continued to attract followers, with more than 100 members in 1979 and a peak of around 500 in the early 1980s. The teachings of the Christ Brotherhood continue to fascinate people even today, with many still searching for answers about their beliefs and practices. One notable aspect of the Brotherhood is their strong belief in the existence of extraterrestrial beings and their role in humanity's future. They also have a unique interpretation of the Bible, incorporating elements of ufology and ancient astronaut theories. On to the next, the Raelian movement. Often termed as the most significant UFO cult, boasts a global following of around 80,000 enthusiasts, a tale that spins around the message, a belief that all life forms, all races and species, are the brainchild of the extraterrestrial assistants named the Elohim. These entities, they claim, used DNA to breathe life into the previously barren Earth. They advocate for world peace, sharing democracy, and nonviolence. Particularly in focus today is the French sector of the movement, Mouvement Raélien Français, or the MRF, which has faced its fair share of backlash and criticism. In fact, within France, it's frequently labeled as a harmful cult. But here's where the story gets interesting. Despite the criticism and the anti-cult sentiment, the movement has managed to survive and even thrive since its inception in the early 70s. Their leader, the self-proclaimed Messiah Rael, was ousted from France in 2002 and hasn't returned since. The tale of Rael's exile, the French Raelians' resilience in the face of anti-cult biases, and their recent strategy to dissolve their formal organization for a more clandestine operation provide a captivating peek into the influence of the anti-cult movement on targeted groups within France. It's evident that the Raelian movement has faced its fair share of challenges, but their unwavering belief in the message and their desire to spread it globally is a testament to their resilience. Whether you believe in extraterrestrial origins or not, you You can't deny the influence this movement has on popular culture and the ongoing conversation about the existence of alien life. And lastly, let's peek into the mysterious world of Scientology and its extraordinary cosmic narrative. We introduce you to Xenu, also called Zimu, a figure of great importance in Scientology's secret advanced technology, a revered and esoteric doctrine. As per this doctrine, Xenu is depicted as an alien overlord of the Galactic Confederacy 75 million years ago. He transported billions of his subjects to Earth, then known as Tigiak, using DC-8-like spacecraft, lined them up around volcanoes, and annihilated them with hydrogen bombs. Scientology scriptures profess that the immortal spirits of these aliens, known as thetans, latch onto humans, inflicting spiritual damage. This revered event within Scientology, known as Incident 2, and its associated traumatic memories are referred to as the Wall of Fire or R6 implant, and this cosmic tale is part of a broader narrative on extraterrestrial civilizations and alien interference in earthly affairs, referred to as space opera by Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard. The church has strenuously evaded public references to Xenu and has made considerable efforts to keep the story confidential, including legal action citing copyright and trade secrecy. Despite these measures, details about Xenu have leaked to the public domain via court documents and internet-distributed copies of Hubbard's notes. Scholars have examined and analyzed Hubbard's writings and their role within Scientology, their connection to science fiction, UFO religions, Gnosticism, and creation myths. The Xenu story has gained significant attention and scrutiny from mainstream media outlets and critics of Scientology in recent years. The church's reluctance to openly discuss or acknowledge this part of their doctrine has led many to question its validity and raise concerns about the organization's practices. Some may have even gone as far as labeling Scientology as a cult due to its secretive nature and controversial beliefs.
NXIVM. I thought I'd kick off today with the most recent cult on our list. NXIVM was started in 1998, making it younger than I am. Founder Keith Rainier originally promoted NXIVM as a self-help organization with workshops and classes on empowerment. NXIVM amassed more than 18,000 followers across North America until 2017, when members came forward to expose the not-so-good practices of a secret society within the group. Women were recruited under the false pretense that they were joining a sisterhood of sorts, but it ended up being a sex cult. So a pyramid scheme existed within the group, with Keith, who members called Vanguard, at the top, followed by Masters, who recruited other women to the secretive group, and at the bottom were the newest recruits, who were referred to as slaves. A former member explained that in order to be admitted to the secret club, she had to give her master naked photos and other compromising documents that would be used as blackmail if she ever told anyone about the group's existence. She was also told that another part of the initiation process was getting a small tattoo, but when the day of the marking arrived, instead of a tattoo, the new members were told to undress, and their master branded them with a design that included Keith's initials right above their pelvic area. Each woman was instructed to say, and I quote, "Master, please brand me, it would be an honor." Ugh, icky. Just so icky. In 2020, Keith was tried in court, where more than a dozen women came forward with statements regarding his psychological and sexual misdoings. He was convicted of many crimes, including sex vroom vroom, racketeering, and underage bad videos. Keith was sentenced to life in prison, but in a court filing, his lawyers wrote that he is not sorry for his conduct or his choices. Well, that just kind of knocks the wind out of me. Anyone else? In fourth place, we have the Children of God. Initially called Teens for Christ, Children of God, or COG, was founded in 1968 by rogue preacher David Berg in Huntington Beach, California. Attracting young runaways and hippies, David preached a kind of worship that combined the ways of Jesus Christ with the free love movement of the 1960s. Group living, zealous converting, and isolated communes were all pillars of the Children of God Church. Members, who got to be around 15,000 people across the world at its peak, didn't work or go to school. The COG didn't believe in the nuclear family, so younglings were grouped together and lived separately from their parents. In the late 1970s, COG became notorious for the sexual practices that one of the founders' own daughters later described as religious sexual coercion. David coined the term flirty fishing, which was a sexual practice in which women would allegedly have sex with men to bring them into the cult. If that wasn't scummy enough, he also promoted and encouraged the sexualization of younglings within the COG community. As David manipulated the COG family with his sadistic practices, members started leaving the community, including the families of actors Joaquin Phoenix and Rose McGowan, who both grew up in the communes. Former COG members began coming forward in the early 1990s, describing an environment that permitted and encouraged the physical and sexual taking advantage of younglings. Ricky DuPuy appeared on a talk show in 1993 and revealed that he'd been ordered by the group to forcibly fornicate with someone barely in the double digits of age. Ricky later took his own life, sadly like many other members of the group, including the founder's son, Ricky Rodriguez, who was sexually taken advantage of throughout his life by his father and the group. Although David died in 1994 while under FBI investigation, the cult continues to exist and now goes by the name Family International, although the group claims that the horrific practices are a thing of the past. Sure. Okay. I trust that as much as I trust the construction in Toronto to meet a deadline. No. In third place, we have the People's Temple. In the 1950s, Indiana resident Jim Jones founded a church that he claimed promoted socialism and equality, with the religious elements of Christianity. So initially, he was a little more than, just like a charismatic hustler, who faked faith healings by having audience plants pull chicken livers out of congregants' mouths. But as the years progressed, he demanded more and more of his followers. In the early 1970s, Jones moved his group to California and set them up in a commune-like settlement in the Redwood Valley. After he established several locations throughout the state, including its headquarters in San Francisco, the temple forged ties with many left-wing political figures and claimed to have 20,000 members, even though apparently 3,000 to 5,000 is a little more likely. Jones eventually came to believe that the nuclear war was imminent and moved his followers again to the South American country of Guyana, which he thought would be, outside the potential danger zone. The group lived there for several years as the People's Temple Agricultural Project, but after former members started speaking out against the church, San Francisco Congressman Leo Ryan decided to travel to Jonestown to investigate claims of not so good things. During his visit, a number of temple members expressed a desire to leave with him and accompanied Leo to the local airstrip at Port Kitsuma. There they were intercepted by self-styled temple security guards who opened fire on the group, killing the congressman, 3 journalists, one of the defectors, as well as injuring 9 others, including Ryan's aide, Jackie Spear. A few seconds of the incident were captured on video by NBC cameraman Bob Brown, one of the journalists who had their lives ended in the attack. That evening in Jonestown, Jones ordered his congregation to drink a concoction of cyanide-laced, grape-flavored Flavor Aid. Right. This is where the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid originates. All in all, 918 people died. This includes 4 that died at the temple headquarters that night in the Guyanese capital of Georgetown. Some members resisted ending their lives and were injected with fatal doses of cyanide, as were those too young to drink the drink, and some others survived by fleeing through the jungle. Until 9/11, it was the largest loss of American civilian life in history, which sends a chill down my spine to just think about. Just a teensy little side note, by the way. Surviving temple members of the mass death in the US announced their fears of being targeted by a hit squad composed of Jonestown survivors. Similarly, in 1979, the Associated Press reported a US congressional aide's claim that there were 120 white brainwashed assassins out from Jonestown awaiting the trigger word to pick up their hit. Temple insider Michael Prokes, who had been ordered to deliver a suitcase which contained temple funds, which were supposed to be transferred to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, killed himself in March of 1979, 4 months after the Jonestown incident. In the days leading up to his death, Michael sent notes to several people, together with a 30-page statement he had written about the temple. He had arranged for a press conference in a Modesto, California motel room, during which he read a statement to the 8 reporters who attended, before, excusing himself, entering a restroom, and ending his life. The levels of brainwashing displayed here are just too deep to unpack. In second place, we have the family. Oh sure, because that totally sounds wholesome. Known as one of Australia's most notorious cults, yep, not an American one for once, the family began with Anne Hamilton Byrne, who was a yoga teacher who believed herself to be a reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Oh, right, and unlike all the other listings today, this one was founded, by a woman. She teamed up with parapsychologist Raynor Johnson in the mid-1960s to form what was initially known as the Great White Brotherhood. Correct, I swear I'm not talking about the Triple K group or the Yahtzees, I promise. Over the course of several years, Anne adopted 28 offspring by receiving the young as gifts from members, as well as by falsifying papers to convince others to give their spawn up for adoption, all in the hope of creating a master race that would survive the apocalypse she believed to be imminent. While other adults in the group were known as either aunties or uncles, Anne claimed to be the biological mother of all 28 adoptees. She also told the offspring she was, Jesus Christ, and when they didn't live up to her exact standards, they were punished forcibly, starved, or, dosed with LSD, because, a crazy brain trip is exactly exactly how to make little ones behave. The cult went undetected for years because the adoptees were forced to hide whenever visitors arrived. But in 1987, the group's headquarters was finally raided and all the younglings were removed from the premises. Anne was only ever charged with falsifying birth certificates, and in 2019 she died from dementia at about 98 years old, having never faced consequences for her actions. Part of me, my brain feels like it's about to explode. They had 32 years to nail her, and all she got was falsifying birth certificates? I feel like giving underage folks LSD should have been, the priority of offense charging. In first place, we have Shinrikyo. Founded by Shoko Asahara in 1984, Shinrikyo is a Japanese new religious movement and doomsday cult who first made headlines in the late 80s amid accusations that Asahara was forcing members to donate money to the group and holding them against their will. Oh, pardon me, I'll backtrack for a moment. Although was, from the beginning considered controversial in Japan, it was not initially associated with serious crimes. Public relations activities included publishing comics and animated cartoons that attempted to tie its religious ideas to popular anime and manga themes, including space missions, powerful weapons, world conspiracies, and the quest for ultimate truth. Like many cult leaders, Asahara believed in an imminent doomsday, this time caused by a world war started by the United States. And of course, according to him, only his followers would survive. I feel like a broken record, but don't worry. This wouldn't be in first place if it wasn't worse than, drinking the Kool-Aid, giving underagers LSD, and branding. Okay, well, worse in my opinion. I'll admit my brain's a little warped these days for a morality scale. In 1991, began using wiretapping to get NTT uniforms and equipment and created a manual for wiretapping. In July of 1993, cult members sprayed large amounts of liquid containing Bacillus anthracis spores from a cooling tower on the roof of Shinrikyo's Tokyo headquarters. However, their plan to cause an anthrax epidemic failed. The attack resulted in a large number of complaints about, bad odors, but no infections. At the end of 1993, the cult started secretly manufacturing the nerve agent sarin, and later VX. So tested its sarin on sheep at Banjawarn Station, a remote pastoral property in Western Australia, killing 29 sheep. Both sarin and VX were then used in several assassinations and attempts over 1994 to 1995. In 1995, the group executed a sarin gas attack in the Tokyo subway, which caused the deaths of 12 people and injured 50 more. The group says that those who carried out the attacks did so secretly, without being known to other executives and ordinary believers. After that attack, Japanese authorities learned that the group had also been responsible for the death of lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto, who was working on a class action lawsuit against Shinrikyo at the time of his death. Almost forgot. The group also killed his wife and descendant. On the 6th of July 2018, after exhausting all appeals, Asahara and 6 followers on death row were executed as punishment for the 1995 attacks and other crimes. So I'm glad that unlike the last leader I discussed, some justice was actually served in this situation. 6 additional followers were executed on the 26th of the same month. At 12:10 a.m. on New Year's Day of 2019, at least 9 people were injured when a car was deliberately driven into crowds celebrating the New Year on Takashita Street in Tokyo. Local police reported the arrest of Kazuhiro Kusakabe, the suspected driver, who allegedly admitted to intentionally ramming his vehicle into crowds to protest his opposition to the death penalty, specifically in retaliation for, the execution of the aforementioned cult members. If you need a new bestie, all you need is a cup of salt, 6 scented candles, preferably lavender, lots of chalk, a box of matches, and you can't forget an offering. Now this depends on the demons. Usually a couple of boxes of organic dark chocolate will do the trick. Start by choosing your summoning area. It could be your attic, your basement, a clearing in a deep dark forest, or an abandoned building. You can also choose a cemetery, but expect some ghosties, some ghouls, maybe a vampire. Cover your chosen summoning area in a large ring of salt and make sure there are no gaps. Using that chalk, draw a circle within the confines of the salt. Then draw an inverted pentagram in the circle. Make it big and expressive. And after all, you want to make sure you're impressing your future demon buddies. Place 5 of your candles at each point of your pentagram and place a 6th in the center. Light the candles with a match and place your offering in the center of the circle, next to that candle. Now recite the words Sakula Sakorulum, be my friend, over and over, about 6 times. Say it confidently and with conviction. And if you have a particular demon in mind for summoning, picture them in your head while chanting. If you've done this correctly, then you should see purple and red light emanating from the center of the summoning circle. Now at this point, introduce yourself, get to know them. Make sure that your demons know not to cause too much chaos while they're here. Once you have confirmed they're cool, you're gonna be safe, feel free to break the salt ring and invite them to your social gathering. Once you're done, return them to the summoning circle, rebuild the salt ring, and recite the words, home sweet home, and they're gonna go back to their ring of hell. If you want a demon with more power, it's vital to work in a group. This should be made up of multiple powerful magicians channeling their collective energies into the creation of a portal. The more powerful summoners there are in a group, the greater the results. The power of the group will also determine how long the portal can remain active, since longer lasting portals allow more demonic forces to enter our plane of reality. Next up, the connection between spiritual planes of reality on our own is the most sensitive at 3 a.m. This is because the line between spirit and matter overlaps at this hour, thus making us more aware of spiritual forces, which we'd otherwise not come in contact with. Time to start the ritual. Pretty simple, just pour gasoline or another flammable concoction on the ground, and if you're creating a new portal, you're gonna have to trace the outline of the area. But if it's already clearly marked, a straight line from one side to the other will do. Afterwards, it's time to surround the portal and begin to chant. Conjuro potentiae Lucifer, petefesio apporta ad inferos, et tua demones transire, sic orantar mundi, and you say this over and over again. As this gets close to 30 repetitions, have the leader of the group approach the portal and light the fire. On the 60th repetition, all magicians should kneel on one knee, hands stretched, palms facing the flames from a safe distance, with energy from the hands directed at flames. Repeat the chant for 30 more repetitions in this position. On the 90th repetition, either the flames are going to soar higher and you're going to see the spirits, or maybe somebody's going to jump. You're going to feel the supernatural occurrences. Now, if somebody feels summoned to enter the portal at this point, it can be done while everybody else is channeling their energy into it. Everybody should remain kneeling, minus the 1 or 2 people that go through the portal, because it's vital that the portal remains open so that you can come back. Don't wander off too much while you're there, because if anybody's starting to falter, you could get trapped. Wouldn't be fun. The Conjuring Mirror. So this was something that originally belonged to a 45-year-old New Jersey man named Oliver Birnbaum, and it was used to practice a medieval ritual known as speculum, or mirror magic. He performed a lengthy incantation ritual known as a conjuring formula, inviting the spirit world to assist him in manipulating the future. So when he first started doing this, he didn't see a lot in the mirror. Maybe the movement of a couple of blurred forms, or quick little incidents that really didn't mean anything to him. But the more he concentrated his attention into the mirror, the more control Oliver gained, and ergo the more he could see. After performing this ritual obsessively for many months, he got to the point where all he had to do was state what he wanted to see and the desired image would appear, eventually being able to tune into the future whenever he wanted. He gained the ability to project people he didn't like into the mirror, singling them out for punishment or revenge. Eventually, Oliver neglected the part of the ritual where he had to pay homage to Satan, and as a result, the evil he proposed for others began to happen to him, and the spirits he turned loose on his enemies were now infesting his home. After about a week of torment, this man was so terrified that he called a Catholic official and was like, "Please send me anybody." He got the Warrens. When they got to his home, they met a man frightened out of his wits, and well, rightfully so. Doors were opening and closing by themselves. Every minute something would crash and break, or bounce off a wall and just smash. Ed Warren was able to reverse the ritual originally enacted by Oliver and bless the house, stopping the disturbance. And he took the mirror with him too. Emerging also from the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren is that of the Black Lace Veil. So after one of his public lectures, Ed was conversing with a couple that had been in the audience. They introduced themselves as Alan and Lonnie, and they'd come because Alan had suspicions about Lonnie being under some sort of occult influence. He's like, whenever Lonnie's angry, her features are changing into something that looks like a wolf, and her voice would be different. Like, not a voice that she could make on her own just doing an impression. Well, when Lorraine walked over to join the group, Lonnie experienced an episode of instantaneous possession and lunged, like almost to attack Lorraine. After about 10 minutes, this passed, and Lonnie was lucid enough to explain that she'd been dealing with memory loss, losing hours and days of her life, which is a symptom that's kind of common in possession. Turns out she'd visited a store prominent in selling tools to help with witchcraft, bought a book on black arts, and performed a ritual for acquiring lovers. She wanted her boyfriend to fall in love with her, and this ritual involved the Black Lace Veil, on top of which she placed a crown of goat horns before renouncing God and her baptism, along with swearing allegiance to Satan, finalizing the ritual by washing down the vow with a cup of animal life force. So a month after Lonnie performed the ritual, Alan began paying her the attention she wanted, making her entitled world perfect. But everything went sideways, and Ed was like, okay, we're gonna need an exorcism. So he made contact with a priest the next morning, who was able to come and assist with the procedure. After everything was said and done, the Warrens brought the Black Lace Veil, the goat horns, the cup, and the conjuring book home with them, because, well, they didn't want repossession to happen. And finally, yep, Ouija boards count as demonic rituals, folks. Patty Donovan was simply a lonely girl, and she thought this little board was going to find her a friend, and it found her a manipulator. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her. She told it secrets about her everyday life. She was like emotionally dependent on this weird being. Well, on the evening of March 2nd of 1974, she was pleading with her boyfriend to manifest. And the next morning, her dad found the spark plug wires pulled out of his car, the rubber hose unfastened, and the fan belt was cut. And also, Patty was like, okay, I'm gonna go try my car. Well, the internal engine was completely disassembled. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house. Oh, and Patty couldn't contact her invisible boyfriend anymore. Night after night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would just slide over to goodbye. She had no idea that her ethereal boyfriend was a supernatural vandal that was targeting her. By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars was so major that her dad complained to the police. By April, furniture was levitating, and by that there was a 250-pound dresser flinging itself around while flying erratically. Rocks were raining from the sky, pelting the house. Thankfully the police did see that one, but they had no answers. Finally, the family reached out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. They got to Maine as quickly as they could, and they were like, whoa, what's going on? After a lengthy tour of the house, they conducted an interview with the entire family, and that's when they found out about the Ouija board. So then they reached out to the Catholic Church. They were like, please, we need to, get on with an exorcism. It took about a month, and the family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time. After the exorcism took place on May 2nd, the family was finally free from demonic torment, but they were left with over $5,000 in damages to the home, which would be like over 30 grand in today's money.
5 on this list is the Red Book Ritual, or also called the Game of the Red Book. This is another one of our classic rituals where we're going to be contacting a spirit to answer questions and potentially tell us the future. The ritual originated in Mexico and has been part of local Mexican lore for years. As we've seen throughout this series of demonic rituals you should never perform, whenever you contact a spirit, whatever the method, there are consequences. The Game of the Red Book is no different. To perform this ritual, you'll need a red hardcover book that you've never read with no pictures in it. At least one candle to light whatever room you choose to perform your ritual, and at least one other person to perform that ritual with. Head into your room with your partner or group of people that you're going to be doing this with, and sit either across from one another or in a circle surrounding the book. Light your candle and have it be the only light in the room. Whoever wants to go first, grab the book, place your palm on the cover of it, and say, "Red Book, can I enter your game?" Then, with your eyes closed, flip to a part of the book and put your finger on that page. Open your eyes and read the sentence. If this is a positive sentence, something you'll need to interpret, then you can play the game. If it's a negative sentence, then you're either not permitted to play or you're going to need to try again. Assuming that it's positive, you can now ask a different question to the red book. Repeat the process that you just did, and the spirit on the other side should guide your finger to a sentence in the book that will answer your question. This ritual doesn't seem too dangerous, however there have been stories of people going missing after this game, or the red book not allowing you to stop playing the game, and if you try to leave, bringing on dire consequences. Number 4 on this list is the picture game. This is a demonic ritual where the goal is to capture a ghost or a demon on camera. For this to work, you're going to need a wide array of unique items. Some string long enough to make a circle out of it, scissors, a small mirror for you and every person who intends to partake in this ritual, a camera with a flash, but it can't be a phone, it's got to be an actual camera, a glass to drink out of, some wine, and a quiet room. Once you have all of these things in place, you and the others doing this will want to start at midnight. Tie your string into a circle and place it in the center of your room. Put your glass in the center of it and fill it with the wine that you brought. Have everybody sit around the circle and place your mirror in front of yourself facing up towards the ceiling. Now that you're in position, grab each other's hands and go around the circle one by one saying, "I trust you." After you've done this once, you can grab your camera. Now one by one, take that camera and point it into the middle of the circle and say, "I caught you," right as you take a picture. The entire group should do this individually 3 times so that everybody has taken 3 pictures. Don't look at the pictures after you've taken them, just keep going around the circle. Now after everybody's done this 3 times, you once again need to go down the circle and say, "It's time to go home." Once everybody's done this, grab your scissors and cut open the string circle. Take the wine outside and dump it onto a patch of earth. This action ultimately ends the ritual. When everything is done, you can look at your pictures now, and it's said that if you're lucky, you will have caught a ghost or a demon in one or a few of them. All of this seems pretty tame, but there are some risks involved, of course. During the process of the ceremony, there have been reports of people in the circle getting hysterical. So much so that they start crying and losing their minds as if they've been taken over by someone else. This can be excruciatingly painful as well, with reports of people clawing themselves until they start to bleed. If you do manage to get through the ritual without a hitch, then you could come out with a cool photo, but it may not be worth it. Number 3 on this list is the Ouija board. I haven't put the Ouija board on a previous list yet because I imagine you're all decently familiar with it, but considering we're on part 4, I think it's time to bring it up. The Ouija board was patented in 1891 and has been a staple in ghost stories for the 125 years that it's been in existence. The Ouija board, or the spirit board as some like to call it, has been paraded as a tool that can be used to contact the dead and speak with spirits. This board was initially made by Hasbro as a toy for kids, but many people nowadays associate it with the work of the devil. Using a Ouija board is quite simple, honestly. The board is typically structured where it has the words yes and no in the top corners. It has the words goodbye at the bottom of the board, and in the middle of it there's the entire alphabet along with the numbers 0 through 9. The board will also come with a planchette, and this is what you'll be using to spell out the answers to your questions. Get at least one other friend and place your hands on this device. Then begin asking simple questions to the board. You'll notice that the board will begin to respond and the planchette will start to move, even though you'll not be initiating the movement yourself. If this does happen, then you have now contacted a demon or a spirit. The problem with this board is that many people try and contact specific individuals, and it truly isn't that simple. A Ouija board is really like a scary dice roll. You may get lucky and contact the spirit of your grandmother who had passed, or you may get unlucky and contact a demon. The amount of stories associated with a Ouija board where things have gone wrong is truly endless. In fact, I made an entire video about it on this channel, top 5 scary demonic messages from a Ouija board. If you want to hear specifics on how crazy this thing can get, then definitely go and check that out. But my recommendation in that video and in this one is to never use one yourself. Number 2 on this list is the Dream of the Dead. The Dream of the Dead is a ritual performed by yourself as a means to hear what the dead have to say. This ritual is a little sneaky. It can only be performed on Halloween, so if you want to do it, then you're going to have to wait a whole nother year to try. To do this, you'll need 4 candles and something to light them with. Salt, an alarm clock, a picture of the person you want to connect with, and a safe place to sleep. You'll want to start setting up your room at around 9 p.m. on Halloween night. Clear the room of any electronics and make space on the floor. Spread your salt in a circle on the ground of the area you want to sleep. If you're sleeping in a bed, then make the circle around the bed. Place the picture you have beneath the pillow that you're going to use. Light your candles in a separate part of the room in a rectangle big enough for you to sit inside. Now that everything is set, you can begin. Go to your rectangle of candles and place yourself inside of it. Close your eyes and think about a group of people that are dead that are now surrounding you. Think about this image and say the words, "On this night of nights, I call the gatekeeper, divider of the realm of the living and the dead, and I demand communion with the peaceful dead." Now, go to your bed and sleep. Once you fall asleep, you should see the person whose picture is beneath your pillow. They will appear in your dream and speak to you. Don't speak back, just listen to what they have to say. The problem with this ritual is that sometimes it isn't that person who you intended, kind of similarly to the Ouija board. People have also reported feeling trapped in this dream, like it's never ending and their whole lives are being spent in this dream, or at least that's what it feels like to them. I think hearing from the dead could be cool, but I personally would not want to risk a harrowing experience with a demon in my dreams. Number 1 on this list is Serra Sarita. Serra Sarita is a ritual that originated in Spain and is used as a method of gaining information from a dead spirit. Whomst Serra Sarita is somewhat up in the air. Now, some people believe that Serra Sarita is one person and that she's the daughter of Lucifer. Others believe that Sarah and Sarita are 2 different people, sisters that were brutally murdered, and now play this game with the living. Whether it be the daughter of Lucifer or 2 dead girls, you will be dealing with demon spirits, and that can always go wrong. To perform this ritual, you're gonna need 1 other friend. You also need 2 standard coins. Now, do not try to rig the coins so they're weighted, or you'll be killed. You and your friend can start at any time of the day. You just need to sit on the ground of whatever area you've chosen and say in unison, "Sarah Sarita, may I enter your game?" Then, simultaneously, flip your coins. If both land heads up, then you can continue going. If both land tails up, then you stop immediately and do not proceed. If one is heads and one is tails, then it's said that you can continue, but do so with caution. Assuming you got both heads up, then proceed by asking Sarah Sarita some yes or no questions. You need to go one by one, and you should never speak over yourselves. Ask her a yes or no question, and then both flip your coins. The same logic follows as before. Heads is a yes, tails are a no, and if they differ, then it's a maybe. When you've had enough, you must ask Sarah Sarita, may I leave your game? Then flip your coins and continue to ask this question until you get heads. Leaving early, that's a big no-no, so don't do that. The ritual here isn't too dangerous, but it's what has happened after this ritual. People have reported getting haunted by some sort of demon figure following this game, or hearing voices in their heads that won't go away. Sarah Sarita, whoever it is assuredly a demon, and they're not to be trusted.
Japan is globally popular for its shrine culture and houses approximately 80,000 of them. The most important among all is the Ise Grand Shrine, which is a complex composed of many Shinto shrines centered on two main shrines. It is one of the most expensive temples in Japan due to its architectural grandeur. To maintain the Shinto traditions dating back to the 8th century, this temple is rebuilt every 20 years, and that comes with a very hefty price tag. Fun fact, unless you are a member of the royal family, you are forbidden to enter the hallowed halls of this ancient Japanese representation. However, tourists are free to roam the forest, including its ornamental walkways, but no stepping on the property. The inner shrine is dedicated to the worship of Amaterasu and is located on the south of the central, where she is believed to dwell. The shrine buildings are made of solid cypress wood and use no nails, but instead joined wood, so you can see how costs add up. The outer shrine is dedicated to the god of agriculture, rice harvest, and industry. Allegedly the home of the sacred mirror, this whole shrine is one of Shinto's holiest and most important sites. During the Edo period, it is estimated that 1 out of 10 Japanese folks conducted a pilgrimage to this shrine. Allegedly, a pilgrimage to said shrine flourished in both commercial and religious frequency. According to historical documents, 3.62 million people visited the shrine in 50 days back in 1625, and 1.18 million people visited the shrine in just 3 days in 1829, when the Grand Festival, that used to be held every 20 years, was held. Because the shrine is considered a sanctuary, no security checkpoints were conducted, as it was considered sacrilege by the faithful. The two main shrines are joined by a pilgrimage road to this day that passes through the old entertainment district. The chief priest or priestess of the shrine must be related to the Imperial House of Japan, and they are the ones responsible for watching over the shrine. According to my research, the current high priestess of the shrine is the daughter of the Emperor Emeritus Akihito, former Princess Sayako Kuroda. The mausoleum of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, has been buried deep underneath a pyramid for more than 2,000 years. It is one of the greatest discoveries of all time, but remains a mystery for historians and archaeologists. It was constructed over a period of 38 years, from 246 to 208 BCE, and yes, like I said, it is situated under a 76-meter tall tomb mound, shaped like a truncated pyramid, for being specific. The layout of the mausoleum is modeled on the layout of the capital of the dynasty, which was divided into inner and outer cities. The circumference of the inner city is about 2.5 kilometers, the outer is 6.3, and the tomb is located in the southwest of the inner city and faces east. So the main tomb chamber housing the coffin and burial artifacts is the core of the architectural complex of the mausoleum. But here's the thing, the tomb itself hasn't been excavated. We'll get into more why in a moment. Archaeological explorations currently concentrate on various sites of the extensive necropolis surrounding the tomb, including the Terracotta Army to the east of the tomb mount. That army served as a garrison to the mausoleum, and yeah, like I said, it has not been completely excavated. So, with all of that, the contents of the tomb are mostly sealed and unexplored, but you cannot go there. It is said that the burial complex comprises of a lot of things that the man buried there is going to need in the afterlife. So, to pay respect to the ancient site, the Chinese government has absolutely prohibited excavation of the tomb, making it one of the most forbidden places of worship in the world. The Plutonian at Hierapolis, or Pluto's Gate, was a Plutonian in the ancient city of Hierapolis near Pamukkale in modern Turkey's Denizli province. If I butchered any of that, I apologize, I practiced. Though the exact age of the site is currently unknown, the nearby city was founded around the year 190 BC by the king of Pergamum, Eumenes II. Back in the ancient times, people didn't dare to venture there because they believed it to be a very dangerous place. According to the ancient historian Strabo, nobody could survive the trip. After he visited the place, he wrote that he threw in sparrows and they immediately breathed their last and fell. Ritual animal sacrifices were actually common at the site. Animals, kind of like this, would be chucked into the cave and then pulled back out with ropes that had been tied to them. Archaeologists noted that the fumes emitted from the cavern still maintained their deadly properties, as they recorded passing birds, attracted by the warm air, died after breathing the toxic fumes. To this day. But going back in time, during the early years of the town, the castrated priests of Cybele, known as the Galli, descended into the Plutonian, crawled all over the floor to pockets of oxygen, or held their breath. Fun fact, carbon dioxide is heavier than air, so they tend to settle in hollows. Then these priests came up to show that they were immune. People believed a miracle had happened, and that therefore the priests were infused with superior powers, they had divine protection. That wasn't true, we'll get to the truth in a moment. To everyone's surprise, the reputation was confirmed by scientists in 1965. This is when the site was officially discovered by Italian archaeologists, who published reports on their excavations throughout the decade. Following the studies carried out on the site in 1998, a geologist of the Italian National Research Council, Luigi Picardi, recognized that the origin of both the area and of the nearby Apollo's oracle was linked to the existence of the surface trace of a seismic fault, which both sanctuaries were purposely built, and that's how we got the gateway of Hades. So after measuring the CO2 concentration, they found out that at night, when the temperature gets lower, things get cooler, and CO2 becomes a lot heavier than air, it forms some kind of a lake on the bottom of the gate. But at dawn, the concentration reaches its peak, and any living being is gonna risk their life by getting there. Apparently, during daytime, the site's a little bit safer. The sun helps to dissipate the gas, but at the end of the day, it's just a small cave, just large enough for one person to enter through a fenced entrance, beyond which the stairs go down, and then you get all that gas from that underground geologic activity. So I wouldn't risk your life. In 2013, it was further explored by Italian archaeologists, and as part of a restoration project, a replica of the marble statue of Hades and Cerberus has been restored to its original place, because apparently that was there before. Pretty neat. Yemeni pilgrims are among the more than 2 million pilgrims that ascend regularly to the holy mount of Arafah to perform the major rituals of Hajj, the noon and afternoon prayers, both combined and shortened. Then they perform other prayers, they spend the night there, and then they return from there to Mina. So these pilgrim camps comprise 4 service centers, in which there's an integrated system of transportation and various logistical services that authorities have harnessed to serve them. And this has provided a great atmosphere, and all this sounds really great and swell and all, but where they tend to travel, you can't go. And even where they're from, you can't go either. So the area of Arafat is approximately 33 square kilometers, where more than 2 million pilgrims gather every year. And the largest pillar of the pilgrimage is standing on the mountain, and you can't have your pilgrimage without that. Why can't we travel anywhere that I've just mentioned? Well, the United States Department warns not to travel to Yemen because of civil unrest, health risks, kidnapping, armed conflict, and more. The embassy ceased operations in the country in 2015. There's no part of Yemen that is immune to violence. Military conflict has caused significant destruction of infrastructure, housing, schools, medical facilities, utilities, and more. On top of that, there's a lot of attacks. There's a threat of kidnapping. Also, Yemen has the world's largest cholera outbreak, which is throughout the entire country. So if you do travel there, that's on you. Finally for today, North Sentinel Island is one of the Andaman Islands in the Bay of Bengal, which also includes the South Sentinel Island. Now this island in particular, the north one, is a protected area of India. It is home to the Sentinelese, an indigenous tribe in voluntary isolation who have defended, often by force, their protected isolation from the outside world. Their population was estimated to be between 50 to 400 people in a 2012 report, which shows you how much we know. India's 2011 census was like, maybe there's 15 people, but once again, this is a wild guess. The islanders have been observed firing arrows at boats, as well as low-flying helicopters, all to protect themselves. And these attacks have resulted in injury and death, well, because people try to trespass. In 2006, islanders killed 2 fishermen whose boat had drifted ashore, and in 2018, an American missionary, 26-year-old John Cho, was killed after he illegally attempted to make contact with the islanders 3 separate times and paid folks to transport him to the island. Indian officials made several attempts to recover the body, but eventually it wasn't worth it. An anthropologist involved in the case was like, the risk of a dangerous clash was too great to justify any further attempts. I can't emphasize it enough. This region is strictly prohibited for visitors of any kind and is one of the most dangerous and forbidden places in the world.